All right, we are live right now. I'm now going to go on what I do every single time on live shows, and spam links into spam links into the live chats. So we will just wait a minute or so before we get talking about everything, and should normally have all the links prepared before we do this, but I was clearly not prepared. Um, Prepared beforehand. I do apologize for any of the background noise there. I would like to welcome everyone who is jumping in at the moment to my 20th birthday party. That is clearly why you are all here and not any other reason. Um, Maybe we might get to a little bit of Kentucky Derby talk and all that fun stuff. Obviously, of course, being facetious there. This is our live show for the 2022 Kentucky Derby. As is usually the case when we're here with live shows, I'm here. Eric is also joining me. And in addition to that, if you have been following us on Twitter, Andrew from YouTube channel Road Warrior 627 is here. So welcome to both of you gentlemen.
Happy to be here, Jack. I don't usually get to join you for these live streams, or at least for a good portion of it. So happy to actually get to hop on. And of course, a happy birthday to you as well. I know last night we were recording so late. I wished you like when it started officially, but now I can wish you it during the normal time of the day.
Like I mentioned, I appreciate everybody who is out here joining me for my 20th birthday party. I am because we're not very open about how old we are. I am 20 years old, so not quite there in terms of whether or not we can have the mint julep or not. But you know how that is. But anyways, in addition to all of that fun stuff, as my links are currently not working, we are going to get into all the intricacies with the Kentucky Derby. And while I'm fishing around for links, Eric has been dying all day to get back into one of the best talking points that we had on Racing Rundown all week, and that is basically turning the opening intro of this and the a half of our Kentucky Derby talk on episode 157 into why Messier won't win the Kentucky Derby. So I'll give you the opportunity to get into that right now and just go back into your whole spiel on Messier. So the floor is yours.
And it's not even entirely about Messier. It's just about the race in general. It seems that my thoughts on this year's race shape and therefore the pace have been a bit misconstrued, and I'm just a little tired of it, to be honest. So I just want to clear the air. I want there to be a public forum for me to voice my full opinions on what the pace will look like, and then that'll be that. I'm done with it until the race is over. So for one, I do want to establish a very key tenet of this entire argument, and it's that race shape or race setup is a whole different thing than pace. A race can set up one way, but the pace not be exactly the same. You can have the same exact structure, same amount of front runners, and it'd be a complete polar opposite in terms of what fractions they actually put up. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, this year's Derby sets up 100% exactly like the 2005 Kentucky Derby from a setup standpoint. So how the race will shape out. And if you think I'm wrong, DM me, whatever you want, and I can show you the side-by-sides. It's the exact same. Whether they go that fast or not, I can't determine. It's going to be on the quicker side, and therefore it's going to pay deeper to the closers. I really don't care about the Derby's been playing the speed in the past few years. That's been circumstantial more than anything, where, the fact of the matter is, a year-by-year trend of a race holding speed, that's just not a thing. That is not a thing. Because then you'd basically be saying Churchill Downs is a speed favoring track, and sometimes it is, but it has not been the last 8 years. It's been circumstantial each and every time. So while I understand the past however many Derby winners have been forwardly placed, they've also all been pretty, subtle paces for these types of horses, the fractions at least. So that'll probably not be the case this year. A lot has to happen to make that happen, because there is more speed in this year's Kentucky Derby than the last 8 or 9. So naturally that's going to make it quicker, and of course going to set up for those horses coming from off the pace. So finally, just one more time, clearing the air. The race sets up just like the 2005 Kentucky Derby. They'll probably they could go a touch slower, but all things considered, it will be a fast pace. And that's that. I don't know what goes on from there. Maybe someone freaks and still wins up there, but I think it's crazy to say it's not a race that on paper sets up quick. And therefore, for me at least, that means I want to go off the pace, which is why I did.
And I should also mention one note that comes with that is, we usually, and Eric, you texted me this, so I'm going to kind of steal from what you said to me, is we generally have a very good idea of what a race's early setup is going to look like. I'll go back specifically to the Breeders' Cup Distaff and the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, the Breeders' Cup Classic from last year was a race that we were not truly correct on, because we told you that the race was going to not set up at all for Medina Spirit. We said that Nick's Go was going to, well, I mean, we were right in one facet because we said Nick's Go was going to go to the front, and a lot of people disagreed with us on that. And we all know what ended up happening there. Nick's Go won the Classic Wire to Wire, all that fun stuff. Now we thought that that Medina Spirit was going to contest that. And ultimately, for whatever reason, that didn't happen. But that's all beside the point. And then on the distaff note, we told you that the distaff was going to be Latruska is going to get cooked, and there's going to be tons of speed up there and everything. So on that facet, we were right on that front too. So I am very confident that we've accurately measured out how the pace is going to play out. And again, we didn't throw out fractional notes because it's impossible to predict how fast they're going to go, but that's what it's going to look like down the backside. I think, what was your number? 90% confidence in the projections that we laid out in the video. I think that's what it was, but just check with you.
Yeah, I mean, the only scenario in which there isn't heavy speed in this year's Kentucky Derby is if truly 4 or 5 of the expected front 7 don't get out of the gate well. And that's, I mean, truly, if this was a claimer on a Saturday, or on a Tuesday, I should say, a random race at some random track with a big field, and there were many speed horses signed on, I guarantee all the pundits, all these Twitter cappers, these commenters, whoever it is, they would all be saying, oh, well, the speed's going to get cooked. And I think that there's a lot of under-analyzing of it because of past tendencies. Well, that's exactly what gets you beat this year, in my opinion. And I'm not saying it's going to set up for a Giacomo-esque victory. It could. But that's not directly what I'm saying. I'm just saying the pace is going to be quick, and the race sets up a lot like one of the quickest races in the Kentucky Derby. So do with that what you will. It's very hard to find a reason in which that won't be the case looking at this race on paper.
And with that being mentioned, we'll get into, I'll just mention right now, I have been spamming the chat of this with all the relevant links for Racing Rundown. So you have the links to the podcast's official Twitter. You have a link to my Twitter, to Eric's Twitter, also to Andrew, our guest's Twitter. You have a link to the playlist for all the Kentucky Derby profiles. I should mention, unfortunately, they're not all done yet. I haven't had the opportunity to get the last 2 done. Unfortunately, I had to wait on Chad Brown to say whether or not early voting was going to be in the Kentucky Derby this year. So didn't get a Pioneer of Medina profile out last week. And then on Monday, when we had Ethereal Road come into the Kentucky Derby, I actually have not yet made the Ethereal Road preview. So once we're done, I got to make a preview about a horse that has no chance in the Derby. So that's super fun. But you can check out the link to the 18 profiles that are still relevant. Unoho is still in the playlist. I haven't taken him out yet, even though he's not in the Kentucky Derby anymore. But you can check those out, get our thoughts on each of our individual thoughts on the horses. And then there's also a link to our Kentucky Derby and our Kentucky Oaks profiles. And now as I'm remembering, there was one link that I couldn't remember that I wasn't putting in there. And I just remembered it now. And the other thing that I will mention is Racing Rundown is a podcast weekly, wherever you get your podcasts at: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, all those fun places. You can find us there. Listen to us every week. We have podcast episodes every week. We're not able to do the amount of previews that we were able to do last year. Just something that I have not been able to keep up now that life has gotten a lot more serious, but we do preview every race or most major stakes races on our episode every week. So you can check us out there. That's where you're going to get the most content from Racing Run. And again, we will still continue to have YouTube previews, but can't preview every race because we, both of us, are very busy people and do have a ton of stuff that we have to do in addition to this. In the meantime, the final links that I'm throwing in here, I'm throwing in a link to the Spotify playlist of Racing Rundown. You can go check that out there. It is also on iTunes, which I will also drop in there. I'm not going to drop anything else in other than iTunes or Spotify, but you can check that out there. And as I mentioned, we're on we're on everywhere where you get your podcasts at. You can find us. So that is where we're at. And now I will introduce our guest for this one. Andrew, long time no see for you on Racing Rundown, of course, being facetious here. You were able to join us for the Wood Memorial full card preview, which I don't remember how it played out, but did you not hit that pick 5? Or we did a pick 6, but did you not hit the pick 5 of what would have been all the stakes on that one? I can't remember. I feel like you texted me that you did that, but correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
All right. So, funny story about that. Yes, I did. I did not hit the pick 6 because Jose Lizcano decided to rate Kumar, which he better not do tomorrow because Kumar's running again at Belmont in the second race. He would have won that, and I would have actually had the pick 6 if that happened. But I also decided that when I was at the track, I don't play pick 5s, pick 4s. It's just too much money. I decided to leave nostalgic out of my pick 3s. And, that was a bad mistake. The first pick 3 paid over 60. The second one paid 50. And they were all with short prices. So that $95 loss I had on Wood Memorial Day could have been a $15 profit. But, that's just how my stupid mind works.
That we all have those stories, so it's unfortunate, but hopefully we'll be able to come out of this weekend with some super fun, nice winners. Definitely, at least for me personally, those folks who haven't listened to this week's episode, I have been trying to abandon price chasing. And one of the big things I didn't want to price chase, especially in the Kentucky Derby this year, because I know I did that last year and it did not play out. And, Eric has said to me several times since then, Superstock wasn't a bad pick. I say it was a bad pick because I know exactly why I picked him. I tried to price chase in the Kentucky Derby. But I, at least for me personally, I feel like I kept a good balance between the races where I took shots in and the races where I took favorites. But with that being mentioned, we'll get into we'll start off with the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks, and we'll get into some of the undercard races. We're not going to do every single one of them, but we're going to do a good chunk of them. And I'll actually turn it over to you, Andrew, because you have not had the floor yet to give your picks out. So what are your picks for just right now, the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks?
Yeah, so the Derby and Oaks for me this year actually are very, very small events for me. Last year, I bet the most amount of money I ever did on the Derby. I was very confident in Essential Quality. And he did run the best race, but of course he was very wide and ran 68 feet more than the winner on a conveyor belt racetrack. Needless to say, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I haven't picked a Derby winner since 2010, which was Super Sabre. And that was the first time I ever picked the Derby. So that was kind of beginner's luck, and it hasn't gone right ever since then, despite the amount of knowledge and the time that I've been playing the horses. Well, this year I'm making another stupid pick, and that pick is Mo Donegal. Now, of course, you have to think about the one post. The one post ain't as bad as it used to be because of the gap that you have between the rail and the one post instead of just running into it like you used to in the past. But speaking from a historic standpoint, in recent history, the paces have not been too fast, and even when they have been, speed has carried, and Mo Donegal is going to be anywhere but toward the front in this race. However, I do know the closing kick he has, and I saw it in person. And I know that Jack is a person that really revels off victories he sees visually impressive in person. He talked about that with officiating in the past, and I saw the same thing with Mo Donegal. I was at both his Aqueduct races when he should have got taken down in the Remsen when he beat Zandon, and then also in the Wood. And we need to talk about that Wood Memorial, because not only was it one of the more impressive prep races in terms of figures and time and all that good stuff, but that racetrack to that point in the day had really been carrying speed, and early voting was setting fairly fast fractions if you go by the Aqueduct book, but the racetrack was pretty fast that day from an overall time standpoint and carrying the speed near the front. Therefore, his victory was really, really good. He did get a good ride. He came inside, and then he switched outside in the stretch. It was a good trip, but he did have to earn it coming from way behind. Just look at where Morello finished after he got the bad start, and he was almost in the same position. You want to argue about distance, whatever. Morello doesn't want that. The point is that Mo Donegal ran a super race to go get early voting, who's a damn good horse in his own right and had everything his own way in there. So I'm going to take Mo Donegal. I think you're going to get the 10-1, and I think that's fair. I think 10-1 is fine. Really, the only other horse I'm keyed in on is Zandon. I'm taking the 1-2 finishers out of the Remsen. I know the race in Louisiana, I didn't love it, but he did prove himself the next time, closing into a visibly slow pace in the Bluegrass. That one, you can look at the fractions and you can tell it was slow. And I just love that race. It was perfect. I watched the race with you, Jack, on the phone in the boxes at Aqueduct. I couldn't believe the short price he was. I also can't believe he's the morning line favorite in this race, because I don't think he really deserves to be. My original strategy was to play both the horses to win. Zandon, if I get that 4-1, 9-2 range, I'm still going to do that. But I might have to abandon those plans if you're talking 3-1, 7-2, because that's not good enough for me. I need at least 4-1 bare minimum for me to bet Zandon to win. And then I'm, of course, going to box the two. The exactas will be good with a 20-horse field. And then the only other horse I'm really thinking about using is Charge It, just because it's Pletcher. He scares me. I thought the Florida Derby was okay. It wasn't great, but I also think it could be a stepping stone to a bigger effort here. I really don't like Pletcher's third horse, the 11. So I'm going to leave that one out, and I'm really going to stick with 1, 8, 10, and I'm going to try and get alive to a few horses in the race before the Turf Classic, which we'll, I'm sure, talk about a little bit later.
And I
care. Go ahead, Jack.
No, I was going to say, and I should just mention, I want to build off of a point Andrew mentioned about that one post. It's certainly not as big of an issue as it was back when we had the 14 plus the auxiliary gate. But one thing that I did, and I didn't talk about this too much on Raising Rundown because I didn't have the time to, but I went back and I watched last year's Kentucky Derby. You may remember, this is actually deja vu. Pletcher and Irad had the one post with Known Agenda, who is coming out of a very similar type of victory in the Florida Derby, similar to Mo Donegal's win in the Wood Memorial. And Irad, I thought, didn't ride the best race there. And it's not like Known Agenda was ever going to win the Kentucky Derby, but I don't think Irad did a great job handling the one post, but it wasn't as bad for Known Agenda as it may have been for Known Agenda in an auxiliary gate year Derby. So he certainly didn't benefit from the one post, but it wasn't the kind of death sentence. So just to build off on that, certainly, would you like to have Mo Donegal not be the one? Yes, but it's not something that completely cripples him. I just wanted to add that in there. I'll let you get back to your point now.
Yeah, well, my point's pretty much over. That's my thoughts on the race. I'm not going to spend too much money on it. I'm probably going to spend more on the doubles going into it more than just about anything else. As far as the Oaks, I really care about the race even less than the Derby, and I'm just going to take two shots. I'm going to be a homer once again and take shots with Nostalgic, the 2, and with Venti Valentine, the 8. I didn't like that Venti Valentine was on the lead last time. I thought that was kind of surprising, seeing that in person. And Nostalgic got the rail trip to run her down. Won pretty good. I think that horse has been improving too. And you're going to get good prices on both of them. I'm going to play both of them to win in place and box the exacta. Going to keep it real simple. That's it. I just don't have the time to delve deep into every horse. I used to do it in the past. But even in the preview I made this year, I didn't have the desire to do it. And I'm really looking at other races on both the cards to play money. I was originally going to bet Belmont on Saturday mainly, but Belmont's going to be underwater, so I can't do that.
And now we're going to, or I should mention, my pick for the Kentucky Derby is, or I'm sorry, the Kentucky Oaks is also nostalgic. If you listen to this week's episode of Racing Rundown, you should know why. I agree with Andrew 100%. She's been improving tremendously ever since the grass race. The Demoiselle was a little bit too much too soon for her. And I mean, you look at the form from the Demoiselle, Magic Circle has not progressed, but Venti Valentine's really good. I initially, and this was on me because I didn't look at the Gazelle enough. I initially thought that was a bad effort for, or not a bad effort, but I thought less of Venti Valentine after that than I should have. And I'm acknowledging that I made the mistake now. I don't know whether or not I actually was publicly saying that I didn't like Venti Valentine that much or any stuff like that, but certainly is not the case anymore. Venti Valentine still is definitely a really good horse, and get her away from the lead should be very good for her. My pick for the Kentucky Derby is White Abarrio. However, I am going to do something that I don't usually do. I'm going to make a change. If you listen to the preview, I said that my value horse was going to be Crown Pride. If you've been on social media at all this week, who's the horse that no one has shut up about? That's Crown Pride. No way is that 20-1 morning line that he has surviving. And Crown Pride was about the only horse in the Kentucky Derby that I didn't have crazy opinions about anybody, but Crown Pride was the only one that I really could talk myself into liking. I don't like Crown Pride anymore because of the price that he's going to be. So where do I go? Well, why not? I'm going to say my new value horse is the 2 Happy Jack. For what other reason? So I'm gonna revise that trifecta that I said it was initially going to be White Abarrio, Crown Pride, and Mo Donegal. It is now going to be White Abarrio, Mo Donegal, Happy Jack. So Happy Jack is now going to be the long shot value horse in this year's Kentucky Derby. And I'm going to say that the phrase that I've been saying a lot, for the culture.
And I'm a Happy Jack fan. I can't really say I think he's going to hit the board, but I'm certainly going to be rooting for you, Jack, every step of the way on that front. Before I get into my picks, I do kind of want to add even more on to the Mo Donegal train. We know I think it's going to be a quick enough pace, and I think it will be. And for Mo Donegal, that doesn't only play into his strong suit, but if you go off of Brisnet late pace figures, which it's always giving a pretty good read on closers. They had looking at Lee third best late pace for his 2017 Derby, and obviously his late kick got him to run second in his Kentucky Derby. So it's definitely a good measure when you're looking at those deep closers. And for Mo Donegal, he put up a 121 late pace figure on Brisnet, which is co-highest of anybody in the last 20 years. And that only equals Fleet Alex, who got a crappy ride and still finished third, and then Sweet Northern Saint, who got a very crappy ride and didn't hit the board. But point being, 2 good horses, and Mo Donegal will probably be the best price of any of those. So I certainly think that he has a big chance. I just don't like coming from last or at least the back 3, still difficult enough. But I'm going to be on simplification for the Kentucky Derby. I know it's a bit of a risk, but I like his maneuverability in a 20-horse field where you're going to have to work out the right trip from just off the pace, and that's something he can do. And I see a lot of people going back to the Florida Derby and they're trying to analyze it from a figure standpoint or whatever. You can't do that. It was a bad race because he wasn't put in the best position to win. And I'm not going to put too much credence into the figures alone of the horse when I know that isn't actually reflective of his true ability. Sure, he regressed. Sure, they don't match up, but had he been ridden like he's going to be ridden in the Kentucky Derby and how he was ridden in the Fountain of Youth, it'd be a whole different discussion right now, in my opinion. And I think that makes him interesting to at least hit the board, right? And he's going to still be between 20 or 30 to 1 come post time. So the value will be there. And to me, the horses that are favorites for the reason. It's because more people like them than others. But at the same time, it's a very wide open race. And because of that, it is not insane to think, one of these horses could step up and take it at a price. And I'm not trying to price hunt here. I've been Simplification's biggest fan since January 1st of this year. I've been backing him about as hard as anybody. So it's not because I'm just trying to chase the price. I think he has the ability to win it. But I also think it's fair to go against favorites in this year's Kentucky Derby because it's truly anybody's race. No one's put together a good string of wins, and those that have, well, they've faced a maiden field and they faced the 5-horse Santa Anita Derby, and then you do have Wida Barrio, who is on that winning streak, but he's obviously. I'm going to take one of those with a big grain of salt because I think Simplification and Mo Donegal were probably better horses on the day than him, but his Florida Derby one was good. Point is, it's a wide open race. I do really like the horses from Florida. I think the Holy Bull top 3 all have a big chance in here. I think Zandon's still good. So it's wide open, but I'm a little interested that the money is flowing or will be flowing in ways that I don't agree with. Hopefully that plays out for me. For the Oaks, I think it's Ness pretty cut and dry. Not how I felt a week ago, but the more I thought about it, the more she's giving me the indication she's going to kind of put on a good show there. So she's going to be my pick. And then the value's been Desert Dawn if she gets the right trip. But I really just think it's almost a race you can't bet too much if Ness does win. I know that she's not going to be a heavy favorite, but to me, it's you got to be Nest on top, and whatever happens outside of that, I couldn't really tell you.
And I will add, Eric brought up the Desert Dawn point. I will add something. One of the listeners in the comments was talking about how Happy Jack ran against a huge track bias at Santa Anita, and that certainly is the case there. And Eric and I were on opposite viewpoints of Desert Dawn in the Oaks preview. But the Kentucky Derby, the phrase that we've been using all week is that the pace in the Kentucky Derby is going to be a Georgia barbecue. And if they're really going to burn it down in the Kentucky Derby, and that's the upside for Happy Jack is, yes, he's been beaten by 7,000 lengths, but he was being beaten by horses in paceless races. And I'm not here to tell you that Happy Jack is any good, but he was getting beaten by horses in paceless races. I mean, you look at what was happening in the specifically the race against Forbidden Kingdom. I mean, Forbidden Kingdom just absolutely ran away from them. And he was beaten almost 5 lengths by Doppelganger, which that doesn't really ever say anything good about horses, but you could make the case if everybody in the top half of the field is just going to get destroyed by this pace, then you've got a decent shot to get Happy Jack up there. And at the price he's going to be, it's worth a shot, at least with a show wager. Again, if you look at some of the, go back even with Country House, but go back to the 2 Dallas Stewart horses in 13 and 14, the show wagers on those, even a $2 show wager, pretty good payout there. So the case is there for Happy Jack to hit the board. It's not the worst bet in the world. There are worse bets in this year's Kentucky Derby. I'm kind of just throwing him in there because this is a meaningless trifecta that I'm probably not even going to play. And also just because he's got the same name as me, but it's not the worst bet in the world. I know I'm saying that as I just said that's a bet that I would make, but there are worse bets in this year's Kentucky Derby. And I wanted to make, because that was a good point made by the person who commented that. So props to you on that. I wanted to acknowledge that. Now we'll shift gears a little bit. Andrew, I want to get to some of your thoughts on the races on Saturday at Belmont Park. I imagine that you don't really have too many thoughts on the Sheepshed Bay. So if you want to talk about that and then go into the Fort Marcy, which is the only bettable stake at Belmont going on this Saturday, you can do those races in whatever order you choose.
Yeah, Jack, I actually didn't tell you about this before we went on the air, but I don't know if I have anything here in any of these races because I think all of them are coming off the turf. And they are stakes races. I still think they're coming off the turf because we're supposed to get a half an inch of rain tomorrow, an inch tomorrow night, and then another half an inch on Saturday, the day of. If you do have somehow the races staying on, I'm going to play my guys in the 4th race, which is an allowance race, Mott and Chad, of course. And then in where's the Sheepshead Bay? What race is that? Race number 3. I was thinking of the Fort Marcy. Virginia Joy should win that race if it stays on the turf. I guess it's a short field. Weird things can happen, but I don't see how she loses. The 8th race is the Fort Marcy. That's where I'd spend my old $26.40 and box 4 horses. There's 3 Chads in there, and hope the biggest one comes in and use them with City Man, who always tries hard. And, of course, ran good in this race last year as the 2nd longest price behind Tripavan, who was the longest price. That's really the only race, as you said, that you could really make money in. I think this card came up except for that race, the card is very weak, and it's going to be even weaker because I don't know how these races stay on. I hope to God they do, but I just don't see it. And the Westchester is even worse. I don't even see how you could make money in the Westchester.
One thing,
even sound money, who's going to be 8 to 5. I don't even like him, so I just stay away.
Yeah, well, one thing, the Westchester came up so bad that my first thought when I saw that field was, that's a grade 3. That's probably not going to survive the committee after this year, just with the quality that race put up. I actually just looked at the Ruffian. I could completely forgot that was on Saturday. It's a 6-horse field, but it's actually pretty decent for a 6-horse field, and considering all the horses that are running on the races spread across Derby Day, you've got Search Results and Royal Flag and Zajul and Lady Rock, who actually comes out of one of the races on Derby Day to run in that race. So pretty decent if you have any money left over after the Kentucky Derby. That might be something to at least check out on Saturday. We're not going to, unless you guys want or want to or have picks for that race.
Jack, I think it's Sunday.
Yeah, am I saying Saturday? Sorry, it is Sunday. Should correct myself on that. It is on Sunday. I don't know if you guys have anything. I don't personally have anything, but if you do, for some reason, certainly voice it.
Yeah, I just took a quick look, but quickly looking at it in my mind, I think Royal Flag probably from off the pace seems like a good play. I mean, there's no morning line out yet. I don't know how much money Search Results would truly take. I'm sure Royal Flag would take a decent amount of money, but it'd be elevated beyond her true value given the likes of a Search Results or a Lady Rocket in there. So in terms of just purely picking a winner, that's who I think would take it out. But in terms of betting the race, I don't have a good feel on it. That'd be like a 5 minute before post, throw something together.
I play Royal Flag too.
I just looking at it now, we're all three of us are on the same horse. Royal Flag would definitely be the one that I would play. We'll go back to Churchill though. This time we're going to go Friday. Hopefully hopefully rain is not affecting these turf races. Really unfortunate that the weather is not going to play well with us this week, and also unfortunate for me because I get to get rained on in my commute home after by that rain that we're going to get tomorrow in the New York area. So that's certainly fun for me. Andrew, you told me that you have some thoughts on the Modesty race number 5 at Churchill. Does that involve going with Chad, playing Chad the long way, or trying to go against him?
Of course, it involves playing Chad the long way because that's what I do, and it works a lot of the time. So I'm going to take Fluffy Saxon here on top with Irad. I know it's very bad to take Irad and Flavian, Irad over Flavian, I should say. All you need to do is watch Sunday's last race, and it shows you how much better of a rider Flavian is. But the value is there with Klarovich and Fluffy Socks. I don't really love the horse in general, but I also don't love anybody else in here. The other horse I would use besides those two is Curly Ruth, who beat Fluffy Socks. That's the only reason. But Curly Ruth also got a very good trip, and Fluffy Socks had to come from further behind. Drew a pretty slow pace at Keeneland, so it's not a race that I would waste a lot of money on. I just happen to see my guys are there, and sticking with my guys and throwing out the past performances, it's worked out much better for me than looking at the past performances this year. It's amazing. This is the first time ever I got through the first 4 months of the year in the plus. So I'm going to keep going with it.
I do appreciate that pick. As the listeners know, Fluffy Socks is one of my favorite horses in training. So I do appreciate Andrew going with her there. Unfortunately, I couldn't get myself to go with it, but I couldn't get myself to go with her. But I did. I do appreciate that on that front. I know you mentioned that we'll get to race 8 in a minute. There are a few other stakes races. I know the La Troyenne is one of them. You didn't say that you had any thoughts on those races. Is there anything else that you've got on your mind for those races, or should we just go right into race 8?
Well, Eric's here, so if Eric has anything good to say, he can. I'm just tired of betting dirt races. I love to eat turf. It's so much better. There's so much more value. And the 6th race, I don't see how the 2-horse loses.
Yeah, I don't think our thoughts have changed on any of the races, Eric. I mean, I don't know if you had any horses in terms of 6, 7, or 9. I don't have anything either in terms of value that I throw out. But if you have any kind of value things, be sure to actually hold the thought on race 9 because I might have some things. But if you've got anything in 7, I know that you're all in on Olympiad. 7 and 6 in terms of value. I'll give you the floor if that does exist.
Yeah, I at first looking at the Ali Shiba, I was obviously I Olympiad there, but beyond it, what do you really do? Multi races, he's a pretty easy single to me. But I've been a little surprised how little love Max Player's gotten, given he did some pretty good things last year before a bad run of it in the Classic, and that was more circumstantial than anything. He's a horse that needs to be forwardly placed, but he's not going to be able to do that against the next Go, Medina Spirit, so on and so forth. But I have seen nobody mention him, and I've seen a lot of people talk about this race, but nobody mention him. He's got some excellent figures when you stack it up against this field. So he's going to be in a very tactically favorable position, and I feel like he's one that could easily run second to Olympiad, and just because he's taking no money, or going to be taking no money, given how I've seen the race talked about, it might be just a nice ice cold exacta I throw together with those two, because I think that's really the only way you can maybe make money, because obviously if it's Olympiad over a full summer Happy Saver, there might be something, but I think the real value would be going with Max Player to some effect. And I'm not really understanding why nobody is even a little excited about this horse to maybe hit the board. So that's the only value I could find from those other two races.
Just out of curiosity, because I haven't really been able to keep track of where the market is going. Folsom's 8-1 on the morning line. Is that just that's just a product of an awful Mike Battaglia morning line, and folks are going to bet him, right? Is that how it's looking like the Ali Shiva is going to go with Folsom?
Yeah. A lot of people, I think, are taking the morning line at face value and thinking that's going to be there for them. I mean, I'll be like Max Player's 5-2. He's going to float. Nobody has talked about this horse. I've seen a lot of people say Folsom's the main threat to Olympiad, and once again, they're thinking they're going to get a price. I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't, but I would be fully expecting him to possibly be bet down to second choice when all is said and done.
Should mention Folsom is a horse that has given us a lot of, or didn't, not a lot of, but did give us a really fun winner that we should not have gotten. That was Highway Robbery there. I feel really bad for all the people who didn't bet Folsom, because that was the steal of the year there with that one. I want to get into, though, at least personally for me, race number 9. This was a race where I took a massive shot in with the 7 trained by Robertino Diodoro, 30-1 on the morning line, because I think they're going to go pretty fast in this race. But in addition to her, I did also want to mention, I didn't pick her, but had to consider the one for Todd Pletcher's Sweet as Pie. She's coming out of a pretty decent allowance race at Keeneland. She tried the Oaks Trail in the Silver Bullet Day in January. That didn't go too well for her, but and then she's also coming out of the Tempted, which the Tempted has produced Nest, Magic Circle, and Gerrymander the winner, who is also in the 8 bells. But Nest and Magic Circle, obviously both stakes winners. Nest, a much better stakes winner than Magic Circle, but she's coming out of one of the better races for 2-year-olds last year. And that's one other point that, if we're just going to throw some nonsense out there about stuff with the committee, maybe we got to think about giving the Tempted back its graded status, because we could see the Oaks winner come out of the Tempted in back-to-back years, which is not something where, if you'd asked me in 2019 or before Mal, like in the early part of 2020, if the Oaks winner is going to come out of the Tempted, the 2021 and 2022 Oaks winners are going to come out of the Tempted, that probably wouldn't have been something that I would have selected on a bingo card. But that is where we're at in this world. Not necessarily saying that that's a problem for me in any stretch. Moving on to the Edgewood. Once again, 3 Chads. How are you going to go around? Are you going to go against any of the Chads here? Because I know most people that I've talked to have said that they're playing Chad 1, or that not playing Chad, but picking Chad 1, 2, 3 here. Do you have a way to not include Chad in the triple, Andrew?
a way to not include him at all?
No, I should rephrase myself. A way to have someone else in there that's not trained by Chad.
That's very hard to me. They are the best 3 horses in the race. This is a race where if they run 1, 2, 3 like they should, this triple is going to be horrible. I don't even think it's going to be worth playing. So I hate doing this when you have a trainer that has multiple horses in a race. But I think in this case, you need to take a stand out of the 3 of them. And that stand for me is going to be with McCulloch. I think that race last year in the Miss Grillo, that personifies to me why I don't like Irad as a rider. For all the talent he has, he gives a lot of bad rides too, and that was one of them. He did not sense the dawdling pace on the inner turf that always exists, and he let Sailby get way, way too far in front. And Sailby's a good horse, and she managed to get away there. So also only got beat a length in the end. I know the figure didn't improve from the first time that much. I really don't care about that. I think taking Klarovich and Chad here is the smart thing to do in a race where Dolce, Zell, and Spicer, I bet the race at Tampa. I played the exact big, and I hit it, and it didn't pay much, but I did hammer those 2. Was not impressed with that race. So I will take the outsider in there, the one coming off the layoff. I have no concerns with Chad off the layoff. So that's the one I would take. And, of course, you get Mr. Flavian Pratt himself, who I'm very much looking forward to destroying Belmont Park this spring and summer.
Let me ask you a little fun question. Who's going to destroy Belmont Park more, the New York Racing Association or Flavian Pratt?
The New York Racing Association.
Okay, now, Eric, I'll ask you the question. I know you said you're going Chad 1, 2, 3. If you were to throw in someone that's not trained by Chad, who is that horse?
That is honestly tougher than picking the Derby winner this year, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, it's not a bad group. It's crazy to say that. The Chads just absolutely stand out, by a mile. It's pretty crazy. I think obviously Chad's going to take all the money here. I think a lot of people are going to float to my Philly Twirl off win last time out, but I just don't think she matches this group. She had to struggle to beat a 99-1 shot in that race, and she only got up by a head. So congrats on the win, but she's just a very large cut below. I would think maybe Brendan Walsh's horse, the 9 New Year's Eve. She hasn't ran since March, but in about 2 months, I should say. But she won her first 2 very nicely, I thought, put together some okay figures. And she was only beaten a length. California Angel was in between them. And then Knees and Hips, the 4, beat her, but coming from kind of further off the pace. And it was just Fairground Turf course is ultra weird. I think New Year's Day has a bit more consistency to her, and she does throw the blinkers on. And Brendan Walsh doesn't do too bad when he throws them on for the first time. So that's the one I think could maybe come and get it because she is pretty decent. Also, Dreamless getting on the grass for the first time. I just don't think there's much pace in front of her to close into, and she seems dependent on that for the most part. So I'm intrigued by the move to the grass because she's bred for it. And obviously, she's a horse that definitely wants to run for a while, but I think because of that, a lack of pace will really do her in this spot. But that I will say, just for the future, Dreamless, if you see her back on this surface with a bit more favorable setup, she's going to be she's going to have all my attention in that spot.
Should before we move on, should give the shout out to my Philly Twirl, even though she didn't, even though she barely beat that 99-1 shot, she did, and that closed out a really good closeout to what, if you listen to Racing Rundown throughout the course of the winter, was a really sucky winter for me at Gulfstream. So nice to have that little positive note from my Philly Twirl. But Eric mentioned it; she is very much a cut below. The Turf Sprint race number 10, the race before the Kentucky Oaks. That race is insane. It is rip your hair out. It's light your program on fire, everything. Andrew, what are you doing there?
All right, before I start talking, I'd like to do a 10-second rant. I hate 5.5 furlong turf sprints. I hate 5 furlong turf sprints anymore. I don't think they give horses a chance. I think the layout is so stupid. and I don't think horses should be running this fast for this short of a distance thoroughbreds. I think I hate them. That's why anything below 6 furlongs, I hardly ever bet on the turf. It's the same thing almost every time. I hate it. With that said, and I know it's a rip your hair out race, this might be the only race where I actually feel confident in a single. And that horse is Arrest Me Red. First of all, I'm not a name person. I never bet horses because of names. But if you've ever listened to the hilarious Tube Bar tapes from back in the 70s, you know who Red is. And Red was a tough old SOB. And that's kind of what this horse is. I loved his 2 races in the fall last year at Belmont and Aqueduct, respectively, especially the one at Belmont. That impressed me. I thought he was going to get run down. I saw Chewing Gum coming late, and on the outside, I thought he was going to get there and make me some money. But Arrest Me Red just held that 1-length lead all the way down the stretch, and then he did it again at Aqueduct. So that's great. I came back this year, had to come from off the pace, which I don't think – I know the pace, it was supersonic, that race over at Gulfstream. But again, it's Gulfstream. It's a hard course to close in on. I'm not too worried about that. I think IRAD will get him up close to this pace. I like the draw outside the 10 post. You have that nice stalking. I know you might lose some ground, but it's only one turn. Not too worried about it. This is the horse in a race where I know Gear Jockey's good. I just never really personally liked him, so I can't go with him. And nobody else really stood out to me. So if I was playing multis here, I would single Arrest Me Red. The only other horse I thought about using was Caravel for Brad Cox, but ultimately I didn't like the inside draw, and I think that horse might get cooked out on the lead, assuming that's where Gaffleon goes. He is pretty aggressive sometimes. So I'm singling Arrest Me Red in here. That's my strategy.
So that is the second person who's picked Arrest Me Red. Eric, would you say you were as confident in Andrew as Arrest Me Red to the level of potentially singling him in a multi-race wager? I know he was your pick in this race, but to that front, hold on just a second. I need to, I know you're trying to talk. I need to. Hold on, Eric. Could you restart with that? I wasn't picking you up.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Am I good now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Perfect. Okay. I think it's not the craziest thing to do, and I don't blame you. There's only one other horse I am fully interested, and that's the 4 Chasing Artie. He took a massive – I mean, he's a stakes winner for Wesley Ward. He had a really nice late closing kick when he was in the Ward barn. Ken Ramsey moved all of his horses to Zappy Joseph, and this guy took a big step forward on numbers in his comeback race, which is an allowance. Beat Shecky Shabazz. Now, don't forget a discounted version of Shecky Shabazz when he's off the stuff, but nevertheless, Shecky Shabazz, and it was a good run. And I just thought the progression was nice, and he's always been a classy stakes level horse who's thrown it down with stakes caliber turf sprinters. So that's one I actually think at a price I'd like, but I do think Arrest Me Red just has more talent. So it's weird to say you're using like a 20 to 1 shot on the morning line defensively, but that's kind of what I'm doing because I really think that Chasing Artie has a chance. But outside of that, I just couldn't find it. The weird thing about Caravel is I think she's going to take a bit more money than she deserves, and I say this as a big fan of hers. But she's just not a true speed horse, and I know she went and set the pace in that stakes at Turfway, but you go back to her best races in her previous barns, she did not have that. And when she did have that, it was often to her undoing. So I don't think she's quick enough. And then you factor in that inside draw that you said you didn't like, Andrew. And I just think that's a recipe for a lack of success. Going to get out sprinted to the front and then ultimately not find it. And if she does break on top, I don't think she has that natural speed to carry it.
So now we're going to shift gears and move on to Saturday. We'll start off with race number 5, the Distaff Turf Mile. I'm just going to say one thing before I toss it over to Andrew for this race. I'm very nervous that the same thing that has happened in the last 2 races for She Can't Sing is going to happen in this race. If you were betting the fairgrounds this winter, you will know that she won a couple of stakes races at some pretty nice prices in races that you could have made the case to pick her, but there was always someone that was a little bit more attractive. And I'm afraid that that's going to happen here. She's 10-1 on the morning line. I don't know exactly where the market is. I don't know where the market is for any race except for the Kentucky Derby, because I have not been on social media at all, except to put out links and post stuff. But in terms of, I know, because you have Chad and you have two Chads in here, and both of them are very highly touted horses. I know they're going to take the money, so she's not going to be the favorite in this race. And I will say I'm very, very nervous that it's going to happen again. We're going to let her go again, and she's going to win another stakes race, this time a graded one. But in terms of this race, where are you going, Andrew?
Well, She Can't Sing, unfortunately, has the handicap of Manny Franco on her this time. I've had a very love-hate relationship with him, and lately it's been all hate. I'm going to take a little bit of a flip-flop in this race. And, Jack, you remember when we were at Aqueduct on March 5th and we saw In Italian wire the field at Gulfstream? You remember that? Yeah, that was a joke, and that was a joke by Luis Saez in that race. And the horse who came on running for second had to come from behind, and I thought ran a really good race, and that's the Bill Mott horse, number 5, Wakanaka, the Irish bred. And I'm going to take her in this race to turn the tables over In Italian, and then, of course, use the other Chad Brown horse in third. So I'm going to box 5, 7, 8 in here. It's not really a race where you can make a ton of money, but I am going to try to get Bill Mott on top in here. I don't know, from a pace scenario. I know In Italian's been going to the lead lately, and the last time, or two of those times, was with Iran. I don't know how that's going to shape out. There is a little bit of other speed in here, but it's not going to be very fast at all. So I'd like to see what kind of fractions In Italian is going to get. The only real pressure, I guess, will come from Mona Stella. But the thing that scares me is, does In Italian just get to lope along on the lead on a soft turf course like we're going to have tomorrow at Churchill Downs? I'm hoping maybe Wakanaka could just improve a little more, because 6-1 is better than 3-1, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, can I hop in real quick?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we got the 6 Lady Spites here is definitely going to make In Italian's life pretty rough. I know last time she wasn't on the lead, but that's because she broke terribly, but she's been 1-2 early on in every other race in her career. And In Italian, you look at the fractions she's thrown up, and she's not that fast. She is not a true speed horse. She's just gotten a bit lucky with race setup. And I think that I don't think picking In Italian is a bad idea. I think that somebody will be up there to enforce it, and it'll probably be that 6 horse. And then just on top of that, still really have no idea why there's been a huge lack of disrespect for Speak of the Devil. I've seen people not using her in any sense, and I just really don't get that. So I'm glad, Andrew, you threw her in somewhere.
Yeah, Eric, I just wanted to bring that up. Yeah, I totally missed the 6 in here. So thank you for bringing that up. And hopefully Saez does send this horse to make In Italian's life difficult and set it up for the 5. Thanks.
Yeah, and I will ask you, just because I don't remember what the back class is, and I know you talked about it on the episode. What's the back class for Speak of the Devil again? What big names has she been running behind and running credible races against in her races overseas?
Yeah, you asked that, and obviously overseas races, I'm sure plenty listening don't give too much attention to it, but a good portion of the horses she faced came over here to the Breeders' Cup, and they took money, and that includes a Space Blues, a Pearls Galore, a Mother Earth, and other really talented Europeans. And it's not like she was getting blown out by them. She lost to Mother Earth by a neck. She was 6 in a field of 15 against Space Blues in a race that really favored forwardly placed horses. She was not that on the day, and then she's won back-to-back. So she's been facing good horses, and I'm really, people love to. I wouldn't be surprised if she went off favored, but just with the chatter I've seen, it's a lot more In Italian or other prices, and maybe because I think maybe everyone thinks that Speak of the Devil is going to take too much money, being a first-time U.S. horse for Chad, and not no, once again, it's chatter. It's just chatter, but based off the chatter, it seems like she could maybe float ever so slightly from that. And I do just think she is the most likely winner.
I would agree with that. I from what I've seen, I haven't really seen any Speak of the Devil. Not that I've been going around hunting for it, but I've seen the talk that I have seen. What little of it has been for an Italian, and maybe that's the stakes win factor, all that fun stuff. I picked an Italian, but it's certainly not one of my more comfortable picks. I was not 100% confident in there. I do like the shot against the two Chad horses, and I do remember that particular race was very annoying, Andrew, because I kind of needed the speed to go out there and burn everybody down. I think that race was the Honey Fox. I do remember that, and I am still angry that the pace meltdown that I correctly projected did not come to fruition because horses were not ridden correctly in that race.
Yeah, that's why I used this voice when I was talking about that race. That's why I used a little inflection there. Yeah.
Well, now we're going to move on to race number 7, which is the Pat Day Mile. I want to actually spend a good amount of time on this race because we did not get to spend the amount of time that I wanted to spend on this race on the podcast. So I just want to reiterate position that we've had on Racing Rundown for a while. Jack Christopher is not as good as some folks say he might be. Does that mean he's not potentially grade 1 caliber, all that fun stuff? Not necessarily, but the thing about it is, at least from my perspective, why I didn't pick Jack Christopher in this race is it was not a horse that I thought super highly of anyway, and he's coming into this race off of a very significant amount of time off. Not that you can really fear Chad off the layoff too much. He's always pretty good off that, but layoff plus there's going to be someone up there with him. There's no way he's getting an easy trip in the earlier part of this race. And who that is and whether or not it's many horses, there are at least half the field in this race has shown speed at one point in their career. So I'm not crazy about Jack Christopher in here. I don't think we mentioned Jack Christopher that much on Racing Rundown this week, Eric. Are you still of the opinion that we had about Jack Christopher back in October after he won the Champagne?
He's obviously not a bad horse. He's grade 1 caliber in my opinion, but we're talking about a horse that people bet down to second choice in the first Kentucky Derby future wager pool as an individual entity. He was third choice in the second pool, and then they took him off because, Churchill Downs has had enough money of the public's to eat, because I just don't get why people ever thought he could do that. But in terms of being a one-turn graded stakes level horse for this series of graded stakes coming up both here and up in New York, he's got every chance, but I don't think this is the spot. I think the layoff's confusing, and Chad Brown off the layoff is not a bad thing, but for this horse in this specific circumstance, given he's still kind of got more to prove, in my opinion, that's where I don't love it. I think that there's going to be at least one or two. He's not faster than Kavad. He might be as fast, and they might duel. And then there's a couple other speed pressure types that'll be tough. I'm not saying it's going to be a torrential pace, but it just feels like a place where there's going to be some excellent value elsewhere. And it's not a race where you necessarily have to go price hunting, but it'd probably be in your best interest, because Jack Christopher at the odds he'll probably be, where he still has to prove a lot. Taking a shot in some places wouldn't be the worst thing. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to structure some tickets, but he's not even one I think I would throw in just in case. That's kind of where I'm at. I just don't see a scenario where he wins unless he's just absolutely taken another step forward and is that much better than this group. If you remember, just one more thing, I thought my prankster was Todd Pletcher's best two-year-old last year, and he's found excuses at times where it's maybe he's not that good, but he can still win and still be a very competitive runner. And I think it's easy to overlook the Lafayette with how much of a merry-go-round it was. So I think I picked my prankster on top. A lot of ways I think you can go. I know you like Captain. I almost picked him. And I think there's a bunch of others, but I just am very anti-Jack Christopher here. Only in this race, though. I think he could easily be a horse I'd play back in the Woody Stevens next time out.
And I just want to mention just the amount of speed that is in this race. So that the fact that there's going to be someone who's going to be up there with Jack Christopher. Now, I'm going to take this from the angle of the amount of horses that have, at one point or another in their career, shown speed. That doesn't, and I should specify, I'm not saying that they're all going to go up front. I'm not saying that this is going to be a Georgia barbecue or anything like that, but Major General was on the lead in the Lexington. Not too sure if that's going to happen, but that's a possibility. Papa Cap was fourthly placed in the Florida Derby. You have Kavad, who is going to be on the lead. That's the one thing that I'm sure about. Doppelganger was sent early in the race, and obviously Jack Crisper's fourthly placed there. So that's all the horses that could potentially be up there with Jack Crisper. Are they all going to be there? No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they're going to absolutely blow this race up, but they could set this up for closers. I don't know whether or not he is the biggest hit in the history of Racing Rundown, but if we go back, and this is a different race, it was a 2-year-old race, but a 1-turn mile on Kentucky Derby Day 2020 produced Sitting on Go. How similar was just because I don't remember it off the top of my head, and you probably would better than I, how similar was the setup of the Iroquois to the potential setup if there's multiple speeds going forward in this race?
I would say a bit more, but enough to where it's better for you to be off the pace in here. Really, it truly is. Jack Christopher is just that much better that he can carry it, or someone from off the pace is winning. There's really no in between in my mind. And you're right, there was a bit more speed in the Iroquois because that was a lot of first time or second time out horses who had just broken their maiden, things like that. These horses should have a bit more tactability, but at the same time, you're right. It does have that same feel where there's a lot of speed, and the money's going to flow to one of those speed horses. In the Iroquois case, it was the Ride of a Lifetime, heavily bet in there, and he wasn't able to withstand those fractions.
And talking about my pick in this race, the reason why I went to O Captain, I mean, he closed very well in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. Fountain of Youth hasn't been the greatest form of races, but 20-1 on the morning line with the potential that they could go pretty fast up front here, and that could burn some horses out. I liked the possibilities that I could get with him in this race. I will say I have earlier on in the year, I did like Trafalgar, the 9, a lot. He has not had that many good results in terms of races, but his run in the Risen Star wasn't terrible. And it should be, I should mention who was in front of him. You have Epicenter, who was the one-time Derby favorite, Smile Happy, who I almost picked to win the Kentucky Derby, Zandon, who is the Derby favorite, Pioneer of Medina, who's in the Derby, Tawny Port, who's in the Derby, and Slow Down Andy, who would have been in the Derby if he didn't spike a fever. So, and then he finished in front of Papa Cap, who was a stakes winner in grade 1 place as a 2-year-old. So if you're picking horses purely based on back class, then that's probably one of the better upsides for Trafalgar here. Probably the best thing that he has going for him is he's coming out of the Risen Star, where he lost to 3 really good horses. I mean, I don't know how folks view Pioneer Medina, but Tawny Port's definitely at least good in some facet. Pioneer of Medina is probably going to find a stakes win at some point, and Slow Down Andy's won 2 stakes races, and he beat Messier, and Messier is going to win the Derby wire to wire, so he must be a freak horse. Anyway, there's certainly some upside with Trafalgar in this race. I did like him, but I didn't like him enough to go with him on top here. I'll give you the chance to give your thoughts in this race now, Andrew.
I need to say something else first. I was just made aware that the Mets scored 7 runs in the 9th inning to come back and beat the Phillies 8-7, and I missed it. Wow. I think you just gave me a birthday gift, Jack. I don't know how else that could have possibly happened, but amazing. Just totally amazing. Anyway, in this 7th race on Saturday at Churchill Downs, the best thing I could say about Jack Christopher is I wish he would have ran in the Juvenile and beat Corniche. That way Baffert couldn't have won that race. I don't like him in here at all for all the reasons you guys mentioned. I'm totally against him. And I'm doing something totally weird in this race that I never do. I'm going with multiple angles that I don't use. I'm picking a horse who doesn't win that much. I'm picking a horse from a trainer that I rarely pick from or use at all. And I'm using class as a handicapping angle. I'm not really a class guy. I'm more of a pace guy and times, actually, raw times and how the racetrack's playing. So in that mindset, I'm taking number 3, Papa Cap. Now, Papa Cap, as Eric mentioned, or Jack, I forget which one of you guys mentioned, sorry to say, could be up near the lead. I think Flavian, as one of the smarter jockeys in the country, understands the kind of pace that there could be in this race. And with who's around him, I think he will have the opportunity to either sit closer or take himself back, depending on what the early stages seem like. As far as the class is concerned, this horse has run in the Florida Derby, the Risen Star, the LeCompte, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and the American Pharaoh in his last 4 starts. Oh, and the Del Mar Futurity before that. Been keeping about as good of class as you could possibly be keeping, and this time gets to turn back to a flat 1-turn mile off a bunch of 2-turn races. Turnbacks are an angle that I use, and I love it here. I think Flavian can save ground, get covered up on the inside. The only thing he's going to need is a hole in the stretch, and hopefully he finds that. And I think you might get just a little bit more than the 6-1, because I think Jack Christopher is really going to get pounded here. They love Chad, of course, as I do, more so on the turf. But I think other horses could take money here, including my Prankster for Pletcher and the other horse for Pletcher down on the rail, Major General. So I think Cassie may get a little bit ignored here, and I'm going to roll with the 3 Papa Cap. Not anything heavy in this race, just a small win bet will suffice.
I think you're probably right on that front. I could definitely see Papa Cap floating. I mean, you've got Jack Christopher's going to get hammered, and then 2 Pletcher horses, and Doppelganger is going to take some kind of money because those Baftine horses always take the money in there, and Doppelganger's coming out of the Arkansas Derby, which I don't know how people are viewing the Arkansas Derby. I mean, I've seen some people who are ready to pick Cyberknife, and Cyberknife's a horse I crossed off 3 weeks ago. So, if you want to pick Doppelganger, have fun. Doppelganger's awful. I don't pick Doppelganger, but if you want to light your money on fire, have fun doing that. But I think you're right. You're going to get some kind of a price. He's going to float up. I can see why he would have been 6-1, but if I had made a morning line, I would have certainly had him a little bit shorter. One final note on this race. I'm going to be very disappointed if my pick from the Lafayette comes here to win this race, Tejano Twist. I really liked him in the Lafayette. He did not produce at all. So that was certainly a big whiff there. I thought that they were going to potentially give him the opportunity to get a good run there. Unfortunately, didn't work out for him in that spot. But if he's not a terrible horse, he could find something and run there. But I like I said when I was talking earlier, Captain's the pick. I like Trafalgar for someone else in there, and I'm kind of staying away from horses that I think could be poorly placed, because I don't think this is going to be a Georgia barbecue, but I think it's going to be pretty. I think they are going to go quick-ish on the front end, and I'm not crazy about quick-ish. We'll move on to race number 8, just because I would like to mention the one Lady Rocket is out of there. That I don't really think that affects anything that we talked about on Racing Rundown. Both of us, Eric and I, picked Kamari. I don't think, Andrew, you have anything in this race. That wasn't one of the races you told me you looked at. But one horse that I want to mention who's going to be a price in here is Center Isle. If one less speed horse is in this race, then I want to say that she's coming out of a race where she had an awful start. Before that, 3 straight victories. She had been on the lead in them. She is going to run better than she ran in the Madison. Is that enough to get you paid? It might not be. But if she's co-longest price on the board, don't think she will be the longest price on the board, but she's going to be some kind of a price in here. Keep an eye on her, because she is not as bad as that 7th place finish in the Madison indicates. I am considering, and I might still do this, play a Kamari Center Isle exacta. I really like Center Isle. Couldn't pick her here, but I really like Center Isle in this race. And now that I said that, she's going to win, and I'm not going to get the one for it there. But we'll mention Center Isle's my big play. My big play underneath here in this race. I'll open it up to you, Eric. I don't think, and then after Eric, Andrew, you can give any thoughts that you do have on this race. But does Lady Rocket coming out of this race change anything? I wouldn't think it was, but does it?
No, I actually think it sets it up even better for Kamari. It's one less speed, which means you're probably going to have Edgeway and Center Isle out there on top. It is worth noting Center Isle did break terribly in the Madison, and that's been not necessarily a theme in her career, but she's been been something she's done every now and then. So I don't love that, but once again, I think Kamari actually gets a much better setup now with this one key scratch, because she'll be able to sit off those likely dueling leaders and then just take over from there and be in good shape. And it definitely does hurt those other major threats on paper, at least, which are all the deeper closers and just one time, obligatory 7-2 morning line, and Bell with the one. I mean, those are kind of the three big threats if you're trying to go elsewhere. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I have no thoughts in here. So you guys can speak for yourselves. I really don't like this race.
Well, I'll throw it back to you, Andrew. I know that you've been saying you wanna really get into some turf races. So where are you going in race number 9?
Yeah. Race number 9 is a pretty easy one for me. I'm just going to box the 6 and the 7 because they're two guys that pay me. Portfolio Company, you get 9-2 on that horse. A horse that's improved almost every time that she's run. I know last time in the Breeders' Cup, I'm willing to forgive that. That's a tough race with a lot of horses in it. Had to go to the front and set a faster pace than if she goes to the front this time. She's going to get away with a much slower pace. And I think Portfolio Company can handle that. And I would hope that Rosario doesn't pull something he likes to do sometimes, which is rate speed horses. I hope he actually does his job here like he did so effectively with Nick's Go last year and not this year in the Pegasus, and send this horse to the lead on a soft turf course. I think you get 9-2 on that horse. I'm not sure if you will. I could see that horse maybe going down to as much as 7-2, which is the same price as Side Dog for Grand Motion, 3 for 3. I'm one of those idiots who like wins. I like horses that win. And that speaks for itself. If there's anybody else I would use, actually, and the dynamics of the race and the course condition is going to play against this one, that would be Stolen Base for Mike Maker. I'm interested to see what this horse does getting back on the turf course after 2 starts on the synthetic at, I guess that's turf. Yeah, it's Turfway. I think that's one chance you have for a price in here. And Flavian Pratt gets back on for the second time. And the first time that he rode this horse came from way, way out of it to just miss in a stakes race out at Keeneland, down at Keeneland in Kentucky. So also that race was over a good course, so at least had a little bit of moisture in it. So those will really be the only 3 that I use. This is a very tough race, so there's a lot of different places to go. I'm just trying to simplify things as I often do.
And I will just ask you the question. You don't want to see Rosario try to fight with Portfolio Company and pull what he tried to pull last weekend with Warlike Goddess?
Yeah, I still haven't watched that race. All I know is that the horse won. I just missed it, and I went on the phone, and I was too late. So, no, I did not get to see the stranglehold that Rosario had. And I never thought – I heard Sammy Roseman say that you wish that Leperoux was back on. And I'm not a Leperoux fan, so the first time that I heard him say that, I said, what? But now, especially after that ride in the Breeders' Cup that cost her the Eclipse Award at the end of the day. But, yeah, if what you're saying is true, and I still need to watch that race, and what Eric said, too, on the podcast I listened to earlier in the week, yeah, he better not do that. Let this horse roll and try and take him wire to wire.
Just had to throw that little dig in there. We'll move on to race number 10. We got a horse who's I'm not going to say he's going to be a heavy favorite, but we got a horse who's going to be a convincing favorite in here. Jackie's Warrior. He's coming out of a weird effort in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He got absolutely fried by early speed in there. And the question becomes: do you go against him, or do you look at him? Everything else that he did before the Breeders' Cup, which was nothing short of brilliant, aside from the Woody Stevens, where he missed the break. The way I choose to view Jackie's Warrior in this race is he can lose a race. He's not perfect, but when things are not overly stupid, he gets the job done here. So that's why I picked Jackie's Warrior. I don't know what the price is going to be for him. I imagine it's going to be way shorter than that, 5-2, but Did you go with Jackie's Warrior, Andrew, or did you look somewhere else?
I was a little interested in prevalence in this race just because I thought his last two were absolutely nice improvements. Last one was on a sloppy track too, so if the track remains sloppy on Derby Day, should be able to handle that. I don't really know how fast the pace is going to be in here. You're going to have Jackie's Warrior, who's going to go. Long Range Toddy showed speed in his last race. Reinvestment Risk is not slow. So it's hard for me. I'm very bad at predicting paces in dirt races. So you're not the person to ask me about. I was very tempted to also consider Mind Control, who I picked last time in the Carter when he had no chance against Speaker's Corner, who just decided to be Speaker's Corner again. I like prevalence a little bit, but this is, again, it's like that race 2 races ago when I picked the 3 horse. I'm even forgetting his name at this point. This is just a small shot. It's not a race I'm going to be into heavily. Just a chance. I think Jackie's Warrior, I didn't really like his race coming back. I think he's better than that, and he was better than that, I should say. And, I wasn't impressed at all.
And I don't know. I don't think there's anything that you have to add on to this, Eric. And I also didn't ask if there was anything that you had to add on to race number 9. So if you want to add anything on to either the last 2 races that we talked about, the floor's yours.
Thank you. And if we're going to keep the baseball talk on, Manny Machado hit his second solo shot of the night. So he's like carrying the Padres offense. So me and Andrew both having some decent baseball nights. We can appreciate that. In terms of the American turf, Dolan Base, actually, his 2 races on non-firm turf courses were both pretty decent seconds. One at Kentucky Downs, one in the Bourbon at Keeneland. And obviously, good is not the potential thought we could get on tomorrow. But at the same time, we do know that Churchill's turf course is pretty weird and wonky in terms of how it dries out. So if it's not terrible, there's an off chance it's good. And then I'm going to move Stolen Base up even more so. Yeah, I do think Jackie's Warrior probably just gets a little better here. I do think he has pressure at the same time, but he's generally been able to overcome pressure when it's not the pure speed types like he had to face in the Breeders' Cup Sprint with the Special Reserves and horses like that. This is much more those that'll sit up close but not try and make the lead, and that obviously works in his favor. I've seen some good love for Aloha West, and I think he's the champion sprinter somehow, right? That's the truth. But I also think he was the luckiest horse on the entire Breeders' Cup card last year with how the race set up for him. I don't think he's much better than the horses that he beat. I'm certainly not better in my eyes than a Dr. Chevelle, a Following Seer, Jackie's Warrior. Maybe probably not even Special Reserve. He couldn't beat Special Reserve in the Phoenix. Point being, I think he's going to take a bit too much money. He's really a pace-dependent horse at this level. And that worked out for him to win a Breeders' Cup Sprint. But I don't think that works out for him here, especially off of a break when Catalano doesn't win a high percentage, and it's even worse when you throw him in a big race like this.
And I would add a further note to that, even worse when you're throwing him up against Jackie's Warrior, which when he's right and when he's good and not getting barbecued, he is one of the best, if not the best sprinter in the United States. We'll move on to race number 11. Andrew, I know you were talking earlier about how you're going to get crazy with the Turf Classic and doubles into the Derby. So, if you don't mind, get into where you're thinking with your doubles in this race, into the Derby, I should say.
Yeah, so I told you before that I'm not really going to play much in the Derby. It's going to be very limited and try and just cash a ticket. And I jokingly said that I might play more money on the doubles going into the Derby than in the Derby itself. And the reason for that, being sarcastic, is it's not going to be that big of a ticket. It's just going to be 3x3. And those 3 horses, of course, are the 3 Chad Browns. I really don't like anybody else in here. I see why people like the horse that Saez is riding, Charles Spite, and I see why people might like Ivar. I think that the little, I don't know if we can say bad words on here, but my dad likes to call him the little prick, Manny Franco, might try to wire this race with Tribovan, and I think that he might be able to. I don't think there's a lot of speed in here, and the speed that is in here isn't fast enough to compete with him if he's still a little bit of what he used to be. I could throw out the Breeders' Cup turf. I really don't care about that race. Everybody knows how it turned out, so not a big deal. He was up there. He tried his hardest. He wasn't nearly good enough, so I get rid of that. Public sector is not a bum in his own right. And then the horse from across the way, I just have to include because it's Chad, and also common ownership. And I'd like to kind of interject here with a question to you guys. What do you guys think about uncoupled horses with the same owner in stakes races, that they're allowed to be uncoupled? Are you guys fans of that, or do you think it's wrong?
Eric, you can go first.
Yeah, I personally think the less coupling, the better. I understand that the tactics that could be involved and how it could affect the pools and whatnot, but I'm all about picking winners, and if that works out at a price level, then that's great. I'm definitely not a fan of coupling. I think it makes it more confusing for the common fan because you're messing with post positions and things like that. And then on top of that, I think once again, what if I do like that other horse that people might be tossing, and then I get stuck with them at 2-1 when I could have them at 9 or 10, depending on who the horse is. So all things considered, I'm not a fan of it because I think it benefits me more than it hurts me.
Yeah, and if we can, fun you bring this up because I can go on a little history tangent here. Trivia fact that I'm not sure how often it's brought up, but and just really how many people know this trivia fact. But the last time the Kentucky Derby had coupled entries, and it was the 2000 Kentucky Derby, and that is probably the most screwed up entries for a horse race that I've ever seen. And it just felt random at a certain point who was getting coupled with who. So I forget whether the rule, it wasn't at that point in Kentucky, the rule was automatically if you had multiple trainers with horses in the Kentucky Derby, they had to be coupled. And the reason I know that is because this Kentucky Derby featured 2 Neil Drysdale horses, obviously the winner Fusaichi Pegasus, but also eventual Breeders' Cup Mile winner War Chant. Those 2 horses weren't coupled with each other in there, but for some reason, and also another trivia fact, this was the first Derby that Todd Pletcher had horses in there, and it started the tradition of Todd Pletcher running horses, overmatched horses in the Kentucky Derby, all that fun stuff. But not every horse trained by Todd Pletcher was coupled with each other. So you had 3 horses, the 1C, the 1, and the 1A, and I'm starting to confuse myself with this because this is how screwed up this race chart is. So Pletcher has 3 horses coupled together in this, has 2 horses coupled together in this Derby. The 1, which is a horse named Trippy, and the 1C, which is a horse named Impeachment. In addition to those 2 horses, High Yield and Commendable, the eventual Belmont Stakes winner from that year, those 2 horses were also part of this one wagering interest, but those horses were trained by D. Wayne Lucas. So already you're starting to see how confusing and screwed up this is. And in addition to that, you also had, at that point, you still had mutual field horses entering. So you had 3 horses as part of the mutual field: Wheel Away, Deputy Warlock, and Ronton, the 14, 15, and 16 horses. If you're ever curious to see, I'm explaining this right now, and I'm getting confused looking at the chart in front of me. So I imagine that I'm not reading this off of memory, by the way. I'd see the comment there. I have it on another laptop in front of me. I don't know that much about horse racing there. But if you're ever curious about this, go take a look at this race chart because it is so screwed up. And then also, in addition to having the 1, the 1A, the 1C, and the 1X in the field horses, you also had the only entry which made sense in this Derby. There were 2 Godolphin horses, Carul and China Visit, who actually has come up because China Visit, interestingly enough, is the last horse to run in the Kentucky Derby with only 2 lifetime starts. That one made sense because both those horses were owned by Godolphin, trained by Saeed bin Sarur. But just to go on a little tangent there and probably get people who are listening to this lost, I think generally coupling should be avoided. I can see the case made for it in some cases, but I would probably agree with Eric that I'm against coupling here. But you two, once again, ending up on the same horse, Tribhuvan. We're going to try to make it 2 years in a row where Tribhuvan has produced a big winner on Derby Day for one of us. Of course, I had Tribhuvan in the Fort Marcy last year, and we're going to try to see if we can get that and get him home here. 5-1 is the price on him. Do you guys think that that's going to stay the same, or is he going to float?
I think he floats. I think he floats. Not to the degree 7-1 maybe.
Agreed. I've seen more love for Adamo, the other Chad Brown. I don't know. I mean, there's so many others at this point, but I've seen more love for him to this point. A little less. Let me. Andrew said it. I'm also in the same boat. I'm all about race shape and pace and whatnot, and it works out a lot better for Tribhuvan, however you want to say it, than it does Adamo or other deep closers that are going to take money. So, yeah, I think he does float on that. I've seen people hopping. Santine, ever since he ran that one good race in the Hollywood Derby, he's been a money burner. And it's been funny to see. And he lost to horses that if they were in here, they would be higher prices than he would be. So I think it's funny where the money is going to go, but obviously that's going to benefit me and Andrew if Tribhuvan. He's not going to be lower than 5-1. I think that'll definitely be the case.
And I should mention, going back to a buy, sell, hold segment from back after the Hollywood Derby, Santine was a horse that I bought out of the Hollywood Derby, but I haven't picked him there. So fortunately, he hasn't been burning my money, but I did like Santine out of the Hollywood Derby, and I have not picked him in either of his 2 races. But also, the one thing that I will mention is I did like Public Sector in here because Public Sector is very good at winning horse races. And Andrew, you said it. I'm going to steal it from you. I like ones. Ones are certainly a good thing for me. And I wasn't crazy about the Hollywood Derby effort, but I think that we can potentially get an opportunity with him in here. Cheryl Spite, I think I mean, if I'm sounding like I'm spouting complete BS, and correct me on this, but is it fair to say that he's probably going to go off favorite because folks are going to try to make sure that he doesn't get away from them like he did in the last 2 races, at least from he's the morning line favorite, and coming out of 2 graded stakes, one of them being a grade 1 victory, I could certainly see that being the case. Is that what's going to happen, or is that not so much the case?
I'll go first, and Andrew, I do want to hear your thoughts on this for sure. I think he certainly could go off favorite, but it's going to be, and anybody who's favored here is going to be in a position of you're still providing decent odds. I don't think anyone's going to get hammered below 3-1. I think it'd probably be closer to a 7-2, honestly, because the pools are just going to be so even between each of these runners, because no one has a real strong opinion. Everyone thinks their horse can get deep, but they're going to roll with them, me included. So that's where things do get tough. But yeah, I think there's a very real case he's favored. And if he's not favored, I do fully expect it to be Public Sector, but it's not a bad spot to have him as the favorite because he could be a winner, and his value will still be there from a return standpoint.
You guys ever heard of the song, "You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth"? Well, you did.
And, I will mention Cheryl Spite has been the MVP of Racing Rundown. That was formerly officiating, but officiating didn't produce in his most recent stakes race. So I think that we got officiating when he was good. But Cheryl Spite should mention, even if he doesn't win this race, he's been running really, really good as of late. And I'm interested to see how much longer he's going to continue this. I didn't like him here, but very, very interested to see him going forward. I'll ask you guys a different question now, because we finished everything that we were planning on going to. Going back to the Derby, I know, Andrew, that you had some things to say about where you wanted to see Charge It go after the Florida Derby. So the question I'll pose to you guys, and then I'll answer my own question is, who do you like the best coming, like, after the Kentucky Derby, assuming that, the way both of you are predicting the race is playing out, what horses are you feeling the best coming out of the Kentucky Derby, assuming that the race is run the way that you think that it goes?
Mo Donegal and Charge It, the 2 Pletcher horses. I like both of them. I think Mo Donegal has already shown his talent and I think Charge It is progressing in a way. I know the figure regressed a little bit last time. I've been relying less and less on speed figures lately, so I really don't care anymore about that. I like the way that Fletcher brings his 3-year-olds throughout the year, so I fully expect that they will both have an impact on the Belmont Stakes. Of course, Charge It is a Tappet, and we don't even need to get into the number of Tappets that have won the Belmont Stakes recently. And Mo Donegal's an Uncle Mo, not necessarily someone you think could produce a horse going a mile and a half, but just looking at Mo Donegal himself, I don't see how it'll be a problem. Now, he might be more up against it in a race like the Belmont because he comes from further behind, and Charge It may get first run, which is always better in that race. As far as pure talent coming out of here, I think we've seen that Mo Donegal is good, that Zandon is good. I've never been a fan of Epicenter, and I haven't been a fan of either of the two horses that ran 1-2 in the Santa Anita Derby. So they are going to have to prove me wrong in this race, and then I'll start to believe. It's just that as a handicapper, my priorities have shifted in recent years, and I used to be so into the Triple Crown, into the Derby, and the Belmont especially. And I just found that paying attention to these things, it's good to see, and it's good to talk about at the end of the year when you're doing year-end honors, but I've never been good at picking these races, and I've never been good at making money from them, even when I do pick the winners. Tappert's a great exception. I didn't go all in on him despite picking him in the Belmont. So I never see these races well. So I'm just going to go with those 3 horses that I'm picking in this race or using and seeing what happens from there. I can't give a good answer, I'm sorry to say.
I'll definitely agree on Mo Donegal. I'll lay it out there right now. I don't care where he finishes in the Belmont. I am fully in the Kentucky Derby. I am fully expecting him to be the favorite for the Belmont as long as there's like a Triple Crown on the line. I really think that everybody's running with him, and he could still finish like 8th or 9th in here. And once again, as long as there's a Triple Crown, he could be a heavy favorite come Belmont time. And it's kind of like last year where Central Quality seemed like a pretty likely winner of the Derby, but you always knew the Belmont was the race that he was going to flourish in the most. And I think he really does fall in that same kind of category. So he's definitely the standout. In terms of a race like the Preakness, this seems like a spot where Epicenter could run, not last, obviously, but run worse than his odds would indicate. But I think he could come back in the Preakness, which, unless there's another giant, pace presence in there, I think he could run a favorable race in there. And then Messier is a horse I think could also be a pretty decent Belmont type. I don't give him any chance in the Kentucky Derby. That's been well documented to this point. But I think he has an excellent pedigree to see out a mile and a half. And he is a big, grindy, rangy type. Like, he is a very big horse who doesn't have like the greatest turn of foot. He just kind of motors. And I think if he was a horse that they turned off, we would see a Mo Donegal-esque type of turn of foot, which is, once again, why I think he might be a horse who, going forward, would be really, really interesting to see him go a mile and a half, because he's by Empire Maker, and I don't have to really dive into what Empire Maker can do when you look at distance. I mean, he's basically the reason Mandaloon was able to see out a mile and a quarter is because of his influences. And then you look on the Dan side, he's out of the Smart Strike mare, who was good around 2 turns, and Smart Strike, of course, sire of Curland, among others, who, of course, he saw at a mile and a half just fine, and she comes from a family filled with pedigree. So Messier is a horse that I like Mo Donegal a lot in terms of the Belmont Stakes. I think if he can find a way there, he's going to be in excellent shape. But I think Messier is not very far off of him under the same exact circumstances.
So I'll ask you on that. I'm assuming that when you say Messier would be a good mile and a half horse, and you kind of said that he'd be one that would be good if they turn off. That's not if they keep the current, or if they keep the proposed, put him on the leader, make sure he's forwardly placed type of running style for him. And before you answer that question, I would just like to say, Andrew, Sammy Roseman's about to jump on. Could you work on getting him into the on air, and I'll give Eric the floor to answer my question?
All right, I'll
Just,
figure it out. Oh, go ahead.
hold on. Just realized I was muted. I will get him in. Yes.
Good deal. Yeah. It's my disdain for Messier is purely Kentucky Derby based. I promise that. I've had very kind words for him before, long before this week, right? I just think the proposed style that we keep hearing doesn't work out for him in this spot specifically. And I saw a tweet like 10 minutes ago where it was someone saying, "Oh, Johnny V is going to gun him to the lead and he'll be alone." No, he will not be. Classic Causeway and Summers tomorrow were built to roll on the front end, and that's what they'll do. So he'll have company, and that's what backs him up. I still don't like that style of running, obviously, for him. I wish they would take him off the pace. And we know Johnny V can be crafty. We've seen that in the past two derbies, and I'm not saying he's going to take him off the pace, but I wouldn't be surprised if he uses the brain that won him a couple Kentucky derbies and says, "Hey, we're going to back out of this. We'll sit in that second stalking flight with a White Barrio in a Tis the Bomb kind of trip, and then he could actually win the Kentucky Derby from there." But with the proposed setting, he has 0% chance. In the Belmont, though, I think it would work a lot better for him. I think that having that grinding type where he's not ever like losing ground on these other horses, like he's backing up, it's them drawing away from him. But I think it's because he's waiting for more. He wants to do more work. And I think going a mile and a half, he'd be able to be forwardly placed, and that would do him a world better than it does at this distances. You see it with these horses that, and it's mainly on the turf, obviously, over here because we don't run long dirt races. But if you look at turf races that go long distances, and the horses that succeed in them, they're the types that going shorter just never have that rapid turn of foot late, kind of like Messier shows, where he's grinding away late, showing some good talent and good speed, but the race is too short for him. And we see that a lot with a lot of good turf horses where they're going mile and a 16th, mile and an eighth, and they can't get there. They get out to a proper distance, and that's where they really shine. I wouldn't be surprised, once again, if Messier is the type that really fits that mold. And I am excited if he could potentially point to the Belmont. I know that's not necessarily Baffert's way of operating, and I know he's not necessarily the trainer, but it's the same exact approach. So if that's something they want to tackle as the Belmont, I'm all eyes and ears on Messier there.
Now, I want to, not that I want to keep hammering home the Georgia barbecue aspect of this Kentucky Derby, but I was thinking of something on my ride back to school this evening about, and you kind of said this, and I don't know whether or not you said this to me before we were recording or whether it was in passing, but you said how Simplification and Summers, or not Simplification, Classic Causeway and Summers Tomorrow are both experienced horses. They break every single time, and their age, the fact that they've had 6 and I think it's 5 career starts for Summers Tomorrow, but 6 for Classic Causeway. That's not an issue that they have to worry about them not breaking. Let me just play devil's advocate here for a second, if I may. Why is that not something that I should be concerned about as someone who would potentially be picking my Kentucky Derby or depending on a pace meltdown in the Kentucky Derby? Why should I not be afraid of one of those two horses not breaking?
Because if one doesn't break, the other is still there. And we have not seen horses this fast early on in the Kentucky Derby in a while. And we saw it kind of with Promises Fulfilled. He was really good at turning off his speed, though. He was a very weird sprinter in that sense, where if you remember, it's like Fountain of Youth win, right? He was coasting. He was not exactly full send the entire time, whereas Classic Causeway and Summers Tomorrow, they absolutely are. Summers Tomorrow more than anybody. So once again, if for some reason one of them doesn't break, the other one is going to be right there. And even if it isn't just that, let's say they both don't break for some reason. Charge It, he's going to be up there. Zozos is going to be up there. Pioneer of Medina is still going to be up there. Joel Rosario, if he looks outside and Summers Tomorrow has got a half length in front of him out of the gate, he is gunning his mount at the center to be up there, right? There's a lot of guys who think they're going to get crafty in here, sit a really good stalking trip, and it's eventually just going to turn into a pressing trip that takes them all out of the race, in my eyes. Obviously, you can have your different opinions. Just don't call me an idiot about it. So all things considered, I think that even if they don't both break, they'll still go quick enough to where maybe it doesn't play to your deepest closers, but it'll play to your White Barrios, your simplifications, horses like that.
I just want to say one more thing before we introduce our newest guest on this one. The one thing about Epicenter, Andrew, you mentioned you didn't like Epicenter at all. I'm going to further hammer home your point because I don't like Epicenter either. I'm honestly surprised myself with how much I was against Epicenter because 2.5 weeks ago, I was thinking Epicenter could be a horse I could pick for the Kentucky Derby. And after I finished his Derby profile, I immediately was off of Epicenter. Epicenter is going to be surrounded by, we know this. He's going to be one of that 7 in the first early flight of this Derby. He is the one race that he lost in this stretch of time. And toss out his maiden race. I don't care about that race. The one race he lost in this stretch of time was a race where he went too fast on the front end. Now, that was in January. Yes, he certainly could have improved, but major red flag here because the only reason he lost the Lecomte Stakes was because he went too fast. The fractions in that race, 23.40, 47.01, almost 47 flat for the half mile. No way they are going any slower than, no way they're going, that is going to be a type of fraction that they're going to be going slower than 47 flat. And obviously we think that they're going to go high 45s. If you put a gun to my head and said number high 45s, low 46s. So no chance are they going below 47 flat in this Kentucky Derby with Classic Causeway and Summers Tomorrow and all those other horses in there. So if that truly is the case, that Epicenter needs to have high 47s to survive through races on the Kentucky Derby Trail, and that data reflects his ability to stay the 1.25 miles in the Kentucky Derby. That's a major red flag for him. So just kind of wanted to add that point in there. I said it in the YouTube preview, or I'm sorry, yeah, I said it in our picks show that Epicenter does not have the ability to run through fast fractions based off of the Lecomte Stakes. And you look at the Risen Star, it was much slower. You look at the Louisiana Derby, he wasn't the one doing those fractions. And even then, he wasn't doing them, and they were still slower than the Lecomte Stakes. So worth mentioning one more time with Epicenter. There are a couple horses in here who are going to take a lot of money, Epicenter and Messier, who in the races where they chased fast paces, they got burnt out, and not enough people are talking about that. The other thing that not enough people are talking about, the fact that Messier lost to Slow Down Andy. And that is the last time that I'm going to say the word Messier on this show. But I am going to introduce our new guest, Sammy Roseman, who is back with us for the first time, I think, since the Breeders' Cup show. So as we're on the Derby subject, we'll give you the opportunity. Who's your pick for this Derby this year?
Thank you for having me. And I want to wish Jack a happy birthday. I don't know if I wished that earlier, so hope you had a good birthday.
I appreciate that. And I just had to check to see whether or not it was still the 5th. We are coming down to the end of it, but appreciate you coming out for my 20th birthday.
Yeah, only 1 hour to go, though, but still your birthday. Yeah. But back to the Derby. I mean, I haven't came up to my mind yet. By this time last year, I was very confident, but this Derby, it's very hard to know what's really going to happen because what Eric and Jack have been saying all this time, you don't truly know who's going to go to the lead. There could be 5 horses, 6 horses. You just don't know. And that's the tricky part in this Derby. And, I mean, Small Happy was a little interesting just because of the background. I've been mentioning that earlier, mentioned that in Andrew's video. I mean, Zandon's obviously interesting. Epicenter, I agree with Jack on his point. Like, if this horse can't go 47, how's he going to go any faster? And 9 is, what do you think? What do you guys think he'll surely be? 7-2? 7-2, maybe?
I mean, he's 7-2 morning line, so I don't know.
4-1?
I truly have no idea where I don't project where betting is going to go because I'm awful at projecting where the public is going to go in races. So, I mean, I could see him staying there. I could see him floating just a bit, but he's going to be one of the favorites for this race because he has some of the best figures in the crop, and figures, everybody loves those figures. As I say, figures be damned, but that's beside the point. One of the commenters in the live show says 9-2. That's a good estimate to where he could be. 4-1, 9-2, wouldn't be surprised. Could be 7-2, but I think he might float up just a bit.
Yeah, true. Also, I mean, with the public, Crown Pride might just be the favorite at this point. Talk about him. I mean, they're all over him, too.
Yeah, I jumped off Crown Pride. However, I'm just going to stop you for a second because I know you asked Eric and Andrew about the potential price for Epicenter, so I'll give them the floor to answer that question and to give their thoughts.
I don't care. I really don't care what his price is. All I know about Epicenter is people said he showed a new dimension last time by sitting a perfect stalking trip. That's all I know. That's not showing a new dimension. That's getting a really good trip. You're putting ball to my head, 4-1 or 9-2.
By the way, should mention before you go, Eric, I was one of those people. I went back and I was listening to the Louisiana Derby episode because I needed to pull some quotes that I had about Echo Zulu. I was wrong there. That's one thing. Fully admit I was wrong about that. I listened to what everybody else said. It was not a new dimension.
I agree to a lesser effect. I think it's good that he can sit off the pace, but in this case, he'll still be within a length or two of the lead, and that's going to do him no favors. I think 4-1 in 9-2. I really think it'd be weirder for him to float higher, and it'd be weirder for him to get shot lower. So absolutely agree there, but he's not going to be favored. Which it's been crazy the talk on Zandon, but at the same time, there is no such thing as a deserving favorite in this year's Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, and I will say that the talk on Crown Pride has been, to get back to what Sammy was talking about, the talk on Crown Pride has been more than I thought. And again, we did the preview show on Monday, so that was before I had really gotten to see everything about it. So that's why I had him as the value horse. Of course, if you are just joining us now or did not join us in the earlier part of this, I am now off of Crown Pride as my value horse in the Kentucky Derby because there's going to be no value there anymore. It's crazy the amount of talk that this horse has taken. And I don't know personally when the last time there's a wise guy horse that's gone, that's produced to the level that folks say that he's going to produce to. And my rule for the Derby every year, if he's everybody else's wise guy horse, he's not my horse. Crown Pride is now everybody else's wise guy horse, no longer my wise guy horse.
Yeah, I just want to say, once again, it's something I kind of emphasized when we did our full field preview on our pick show. This horse can't get out of the gate. He really cannot. And remember that the two horses breaking directly next to him are two speeds. They are two horses that want to be in the mix early on. He's a horse that you would project would have a stalking position just off that, 4, 5, 6 lengths behind them based off his previous races. But he is insanely slow, and he's going to get stuck behind a wall the moment the gates open. It's no different than Summers Tomorrow and Classic Causeway being exceptionally good gate horses. He's an exceptionally terrible gate horse, and he's going to have to show a huge reversal for me to think he could actually break with the field and be in the mix early on. So he's not going to be like last early on, but he's going to be in the back half of the field, and that's really not where he wants to be. If you watch his only career loss, the slow break and then a wall forming in front of him is what cost him. And he's not the type of horse that can make up a lot of ground late in a race like a Mo Donegal or a Zandon or so on and so forth. I mean, he's not going to run last. That's kind of my point. But the price he'll be, given the circumstances he'll face, listen, the Japanese horses are fun when they get over here. They're fun to watch train. I know they're very, very quirky and all those great things. And Japan's been dominating. But no offense to everybody, but Japan dominating is not exactly a valid reason to pick a Kentucky Derby winner who doesn't get out of the gate.
I'll ask you this because the thought just came to my mind. Is he going to break like Lonnie did in the 2016 Derby?
Very similar. Very, very similar. I mean, Lonnie was kind of that one-run type. Crown Pride has shown tactical ability in his career. Like he's like a very tried and true stalker. But he can beat himself. And he got really lucky in the UAE Derby, in my opinion. The fact that he did break slow and did get bumped a little, and he was still able to establish position. It was, and I say this as somebody who was probably one of the biggest beneficiaries from him. I don't know there's many people that were as lucky with him and had as much, had as high of an impression of him heading into that race. But it just doesn't work in here. And he could break similar to Lonnie, but unlike Lonnie, it's going to put him at a huge disadvantage in the early stages of the race.
And I guess one thing that I wanted to get to, which I didn't get to earlier, is I want to mention about Tiz the Bomb. So obviously we know that this guy's one of the best turf 3-year-olds in the country. Runner-up in the Breeders' Cup, back-to-back wins at Turfway, very good. And his dirt form is hit and miss. Obviously, miss in the Holy Bowl. Obviously, you can't say that he cannot get the dirt because of the way he broke his maiden at Ellis. I'll ask you guys who have opinions on him. What is this Derby going to be for Tiz the Bomb?
I'll take it first. I'm expecting him to not run well, but I've of course laid out in the profile. You can figure out how he wants to run well. He just can't handle the kickback. That's all it is. But if he's in the clear, he might have a shot. Brian Hernandez Jr. was asked this on a show. I wish I could remember where I heard it, and I apologize for not giving the proper credit. But someone asked, "Hey, this is a horse who maybe looked like he didn't handle the kickback," and Brian Hernandez said, "Yeah, we're just going to play it from the break and go from there." And typically, what that means to me is the horse is going to show more speed than they do. But he just doesn't have that speed in this group. And if he wants to go get mixed up, I think me and Jack will be the happiest people in America if they throw another horse into what's looking like going to be an already quick pace, and they want to keep him in the clear. That'll be great for me. Maybe, if we're going to throw a comp out there, I know it was the blinkers for this horse, but for Tiz the Bomb, it's a different circumstance. But Tiz the Bomb could maybe be the Palace Mouse of this year's Kentucky Derby, and that would really spice things up. Just a thought. But yeah, he doesn't have much of a chance if there's a single speck of dirt thrown in his face early on.
Just send them all. That's fine.
Send everybody. Light all the grills up there. That would be like just taking. We already have the charcoal. That'd be like pouring a bunch of kerosene down on this barbecue that we're gonna have.
For me, I agree with Eric. Tiz the Bomb, he needs to go back on turf, but watch him prove me wrong and watch him win the Kentucky Derby. Who knows?
I don't think he can win. I don't think he can win the Kentucky Derby because if there was, if the voodoo magic that I basically called the scenario, the nightmare scenario, which I created where none of the speed breaks, and I think it was like I wrote down in the scenario that. Because as a joke, I sent it to Eric this afternoon. I was like, these are the reasons that Messier wins the Kentucky Derby. One of them was like 3 horses don't break, Summer's Tomorrow scratches, and then Zozo's dumps Manny Franco. Then maybe if all that fun stuff happens, then that could be a certain instance where Tiz the Bomb is able to go up there and be benefited by that. But everyone is right with what they've been saying. Throw a single speck of dirt in his face and his race is over. I'll ask you also, where are you going in the Oaks this year, Sammy?
After the Ashland, I really like Nest. I just found it super impressive. Going to the wire, she looked like she just went up for a morning workout. I would think Irad is gonna he's gonna put this horse into the right position. Let me put up the PPs real quick to see the other horses. But we're back. I've been hearing a lot of talks about the Shahama. I don't really like her. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Eric, I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, I have people I really respect going after her, and so that moves her up a little. But if you look at the horses that she's been beating, it's like these are like horses that would be running for $50,000 tags over here, right? Like high level maiden claimers, but probably still not winning. She's another one where she's not really quick from the gate, and if she won, it'd be more shocking than if Candy Raid won, and Candy Raid has no chance either. But it's truly just a thing of I have no idea what the angle is to put her over. If someone wants to find an angle where it's like, yeah, she actually holds a candle to a Nest or someone like that, a Echo Zulu, whoever you like, I'd be all ears, but I can't see it in any sense.
That's kind of how I viewed it too. That's kind of how I viewed her too. If she's gonna win it, I'm gonna give her the opportunity to do that because there's just too much of a mystery aspect with her. So it's kind of like the way I'm viewing Taba. We haven't talked about Taba at all on this live show. I'm viewing her a similar way I'm viewing Taba, that, I don't think you can do it. Show me that you can do it. You're not going to have my money. I'm going to be okay if you do it, but you got to show me that you're going to do it. So that's how I'm personally viewing her.
Going back to Erica, why people could like her. I mean, the only thing I can think of is Pratt, but let's be real. Who else would Pratt ride in this race? There's no one. So, I mean, he took it. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think you're right. But as great of a rider as Flavien Prat is, there are certain, he wouldn't be able to carry Zippy and Chippy to the winner's circle, I imagine. So if he can't, in my mind, which means there's other horses he probably couldn't carry to the winner's circle. Sometimes it's more about the horse than anything, and that's about it.
Rest in peace, Zippy Chippy.
I'm glad you picked up on that, Andrew.
Yeah,
that was kind of the nod there.
I was about to say that same thing. Unfortunate that we had that horse, but I guess on that note, one note to mention about him. It is good that he did get to, once his racing career was over, his very unsuccessful racing career. Once his racing career was over, he did get to live out a good existence post racetrack. So that was certainly good for him. But I know you said you like Nest. We haven't really dove into any of the horses that much. We talked about picks and whatnot. I made it very clear how I view Secret Oath. How are you guys viewing Secret Oath, the third place finisher from the Arkansas Derby this year?
I guess I'll go first. Secret Oath, if you really ask the question, if she would have ran in the race, what's her name won?
Geary.
Yeah, if she would have ran in the fantasy, how much do you think she wins? By 5, 4? She would have dominated. She probably would have been the favorite. Secret Oath, I mean, I know me and Jack talked about it a couple weeks ago. People always, they're blaming Luis Contreras for this ride, and I just don't think it was a problem. He made the same move he makes on her every time. I just don't think the horse was good enough right now. I mean, going back into the fillies division will obviously help, but there's some really good fillies in this race, and I mean, I think she'll run decent, but I prefer a little bit of others.
I'll just further emphasize what I was saying earlier. I just cannot see the reason why she lost the Arkansas Derby. I cannot see it. The trip was fine, and I saw smart people who know what they're talking about, know more than I do, were saying that she had a nightmare trip in the Arkansas Derby. Was it a good trip? No. Or I'm sorry. Was it a good trip? No, it wasn't a good trip. But she was she didn't have to overcome that much trouble. She wasn't 7 wide going into the turn. She was wide, yes, but she wasn't exceedingly wide. She wasn't coming from 9 lengths off the pace. I'm actually gonna. I don't know what the exact number on it was. She was coming from about 5 lengths, maybe at the most point that she was coming from in that race. And folks saying the move was premature. What did you want Luis Contreras to do? Wait another furlong and move then? It would be one thing if she had gotten even with Cyberknife at the 16th pole and then stopped. She never got to within closer than 2 lengths of him there. She just wasn't going to win the Arkansas Derby. I'm guilty of this, so I have no problem admitting this. We wanted Secret Oath to be what we had hoped that she would be. What did we hope that she would be? We hoped that she'd be this great horse, an Oaks winner, potentially a Derby horse for Dwayne Lucas, who deserves to have one final really good horse. And we implanted that on her before the Arkansas Derby. And I think that folks are still stuck in the mindset of, I really want this horse to be good. And I think that's where a lot of this has come from with Secret Oath. Is she a good horse? Yes. But I think that she's been a little bit oversold because folks want her to be good. I want her to be good. But I'm not going to sit here and blindly say that one race that there was so much trouble and all the bad things of a race are just completely discounted because of one arbitrary thing with her. So yes, I understand why folks like her. I want her to be good too. I will not be upset if she wins the Oaks this year, but I'm not going to overlook the Arkansas Derby or blame a rider when she was never winning that Arkansas Derby. So that's, once again, had to go on my Secret Oath tirade. I would love for her to win the Oaks, but I just don't see how she can do it after getting out finished by Barbara Road in the Arkansas Derby.
Yeah, I agree with absolutely everything you said. For me, it's a little bit of a different reason. In a race where I really don't like anybody particularly, I just think that 6-1 is just not good enough. And I don't even know if you're going to get 6-1. But even if you do, I don't like it. I don't really like the draw either. I know that people say, "Oh, it's an inside post for a 2-turn route race." Well, I don't think the dynamics of this race are going to help her from that post. So I just, it's this kind of a circumstance where, just like a Taiba, you have to prove it to me, even though she's run good races already. That Arkansas Derby, to me, I hated that race. I don't want anybody out of it at all, including her. So she's going to have to prove it to me again, to me. I'll give her respect, but to put her at the upper echelon of 3-year-old fillies in this country.
And I think another big point with Secret Oath is I'm very big on back class. You have to have something, and she just doesn't have it, right? Her win's been impressive, but to me, it's no different than Adair Manor winning whatever that race was back in February, putting up the big figure, doing it by a ton of open lengths, and then she comes out and gets beat by Desert Dawn, who hadn't really sniffed the winner's circle in a long time. Right? I think it all comes down to who you're facing more than anything, and her wins were just inflated by beating nobodies. And I can't give her much for Ugiri coming back from the fantasy, because who else was in there to beat her, right? It's just been Arkansas for both the Oaks and the Derby has just been a terrible, terrible place to be this year. And I would just be absolutely blown away if any of those horses jumped up and ran well. I think Secret Oath could be one who might sneak up and hit the board, and I think she's going to be a fair price, given that I don't really think she's going to get too far away from that 6-1, because a lot of the money is going to flow to the Nests and Kathleen O's, and people are back on Echo Zulu. Never seen people flip-flop more on one horse. But point being, I think that for Secret Oath, wouldn't be surprised if she jumps up, runs well, but I also wouldn't be surprised if she's running up the track.
Two things on that. Number one, am I grouped in with those folks who have flip-flopped on Echo Zulu? And then what is the reason that they flipped back to Echo Zulu?
Well, it's been interesting, and I mean, you have not been necessarily one of the flip-floppers, because you flipped and then you flopped back and then you stayed there. And I think that's more important than anything. You stuck around, but I've seen people who were on her, obviously, and when I say they were on her, I mean back when she was 3-year-old champion. But then they got off after Fairgrounds. They got back on leading up to the race. I know I was thinking maybe she had a chance. Then they got off her, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, the pure talent's going to prevail. And it's another one of those scenarios, maybe to a lesser effect than the Derby. But if we're going off just the individual, I really don't get how she gets the right trip in here. And I think people are just kind of trying to will the talent there, but she can't get the distance. I mean, she was crawling home, going a mile and a 16th last time with a favorable setup, all things considered. And I think she'll work just about as hard, if not a little harder, to win this race, going longer than she ever has, off of her worst career race by all figures, metrics, whatever you want to say it. And it just doesn't make much sense to me. I really don't get it. So I think people are kind of just leaning into the talent angle more than anything, but she's shown less talent this year than at any other point in her career.
Should be mentioned on that note, if she's not going to get the extra distance, she's out of Let Go My Echo. That name may be familiar to you. It's very familiar to me. She produced Grade 1 winner Echo Town, who won the 2020 Alan Jerkin. So definitely very sprinter heavy on the dam side with her, with Echo Zulu. And I absolutely agree with that. I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to add on to Secret Oath, Sammy. I'll give you that, and then we'll move on to, I want to talk about Kathleen O, and then we'll go back. There's a couple horses that I want to mention from the Derby, and then we'll head out of here, because I do have to do an Ethereal Road preview before the end of tonight. Horse says no chance, but I committed to do 20, so we're going to do 20.
Yeah, that's about what I said about Secret Oaks. But the question I have is, what do you think the pace setup is in the Oaks? Obviously, Ujiri will be up there. Venti Valentine will be a little bit back, hopefully, and Echo Zulu will definitely be up there.
Yeah, so Echo Zulu's gonna go. Ugiri's gonna go with Echo Zulu. And then you're gonna have probably Hidden Connections gonna. She's not gonna be up there, but she's probably going to press that. Echo Zulu really didn't get benefited by the draw because she's in between Ugiri, who absolutely is gonna go. Venti Valentine, who's not gonna be in front, but she'll probably press, and then obviously, as I mentioned, with Hidden Connection and I don't think that an 11th hour scratch is happening, but if something happens tonight and someone sneezes wrong and Begin gets in this race, she's also speed. But Eric, you drew the Oaks up, so I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, you nailed it there. I think Hidden Connection, I'm expecting her to kind of take a little further back. I know she's found herself up close at times, but I think Raylu's got a good sense of mind. Being drawn inside, his only other options are to really send, and that's obviously not what he's going to do, or try to take back. But you always hate to be in a position where you're on the rail heading into the first turn of a 2-turn race, and you have speed collapsing over on the outside of you, because that could mean, running up on heels, things like that. You don't want to turn your horse on in those situations. So I think he's going to be pulling back. But I think turn her loose to the outside will be kind of an extra pressing type. She's another one who at times has set off the pace, but as a 2-year-old, I mean, she ripped it in her turf races, and she was pressing Echo Zulu most of the way in the fairground votes. And I think, given she's drawn outside, it's not going to make a lot of sense to tuck and take dirt, because that's just not what she wants. So I think her ultimate goal will be to sit within a length of Echo Zulu. So you're going to have Ugiri and Echo Zulu likely head and head on the lead, 1-2 pass, and either turn or loose will be in the 3 path, just a length off, and Venti Valentine will have to take back, or those two will also line up outside of them, and then you'll have a couple lengths back to Hidden Connection, who will be sitting 5th down on the inside of horses. But really, I don't think if this was how a race set up and I felt confident about the horse's staying abilities, I actually wouldn't hate the speed. I just don't think any of these horses are really fit to win this year's Kentucky Oaks from a distance standpoint and a pure talent standpoint. So that's naturally why I think you have to go just a bit farther off the pace. But once again, if this was a scenario where Nest was a speed horse and she was bred to go all day like she is, then I'd be very confident in the race setup for Nest.
And I do want to say one more thing about the Oaks is it has not been a race throughout the history of it, and history can be kind of fickle to use to handicap, but you don't get to steal the Oaks on the front end. There's been one horse in the last 15 or so years that has stolen the Oaks on the front end, and that horse was Serengeti Empress. Very similar type of horse to Echo Zulu in terms of there were sprinters who could carry it, but Serengeti Empress absolutely could carry it much further than Echo Zulu could carry it. Echo Zulu, she's only won mile and a 16th races, and the Breeders' Cup was an absolute walkover after she had no pressure at all. And then she's coming out of the weakest race of her career on every metric, which was a mile and a 16th that she barely lasted out. I'll ask you guys about the potential. I don't know how the money's going to go in here, but maybe we see Kathleen O go off favored. But how are you guys feeling about Kathleen O?
I'll go first again real quick. I think she's pretty talented, but who is she beating? Really, I just don't see what's there. And I think the Devonadale's a hard race to give her much credit for, and the Cash Run 3-back even more so, because the pace was quick. There were horses that were flying early on, and when you're a deep closer like Kathleen O, that's going to play in your hands. And then come Gulfstream Park Oaks time, she was able to overcome a slower pace, but it goes back to the what did you beat kind of question. And beating Goddess of Fire doesn't hold too much weight for me, because she has never been a type that's cemented herself as a quality Oaks filly, and I know she's placed at times, but she's never been great. So I that's what I'm worried about. And then more than anything, I think it's the pace setup. As I said, I don't think the speed is terrible if there were more quality horses there. But I think that means if a stalker to closer up mid-pack type, that puts you in really good position, and that would be your Hidden Connections and your Nest. And for Kathleen O, and really any other deep closer in here, there's quite a few, you're going to be at a major disadvantage where you'll probably be picking up ground late, but you're going to be coming too late. Nest or Hidden Connection or anybody else will already have gotten first run on you, and I just can't side with that. But I do think that she is going to take a fair amount of money here. I do think Nest will ultimately go off post on favorite the more chatter I've heard, but I think Kathleen will be within a couple within a point of her when all is said and done. So I hate to call her a money burner because she is a good horse, but I think she's going to be a money burner in those win pools.
Like the commercial says, echo town, town, town. I echo Eric's sentiments. And also, it's just me, or does Shug McGahee not win at short prices like this? I hate betting Shug at short prices.
I'm going to add a further point to that. Shug McGahee has, in many instances as of late, and I don't really know why this is, but he hasn't produced in Grade 1 races. He's had a lot of good horses show up in Grade 1 races, and they haven't been producing. So, I mean, that's completely arbitrary, but something to further add is she going to continue to be that streak of Shug horses not producing to the level that we expect that they should in an upcoming race?
I think you're kind of right along those lines. I mean, I don't always go for the connection stuff. I'm not always, that's not always my foremost angle, but I think it's very valid here. I think it's been tougher in these high level graded stakes. The graded stakes numbers actually do kind of fit with his overall percentages, but when you look at the grade 1 specifically, that is where they kind of flounder. And Shug horses always run to form. They rarely ever take the steps forward. Once they get on a roll, like you think about Orb, when he was winning, he was never actually getting better. He was just kind of running the same race every time, and it kept working for him. And that's kind of what I'm getting from Kathleen O. And the same race every time is not going to win this Kentucky Oaks.
Sammy, do you have any thoughts?
I actually have some things to say about Kathleen O. Because, first of all, she's a good horse. That's no doubt. But the things I've been noticing is Castellano doesn't ask this horse, and when he does, this horse goes super wide and just makes her move. That wide move is going to eventually catch up to her. I mean, you can get past Goddess of Fire, but can you get past these horses? That move, I mean, it wins, but I don't know. I feel like it's going to eventually catch up to her.
Perfectly fair. We'll go back to, because I think we're all set with horses from the Kentucky Oaks now. We'll go back to the Derby because I do want to talk about Taba, because we haven't talked about Taba at all. Of course, my position on Taba has been very clear, and it's a bold statement, and I don't like to say things like this, but I truly believe that if Taba wins the Derby this year, he's the greatest horse to ever win the Kentucky Derby, because the prospect of him winning it, in my opinion, is so remote that it bears having an extreme superlative of saying something like that, because when this has never happened before. I know that a horse did it in the 1880s, but that was in the 1880s, and we obviously weren't there. We have no cameras. We don't know what that horse looked like or anything like that. This would be the most remarkable thing to ever happen. And I mean remarkable in terms of like impossibility of certain event happening. That's how I view it, Eric. I think that's you're pretty much exactly on the same lines that I am. You two, I know, Andrew, you kind of mentioned in passing that you don't want anything to do with Taba. Anything further on that front?
Yeah, this is just another situation where I want to see it to believe it. I didn't think that the Santa Anita Derby was particularly a good race in general. I thought Messier would run better, your pick. I know you were very high on him, even into the Derby back then. And I did say, as the race started, I said, who's that? Is that Baffert's ex-horse on the outside? It's the longer one, so I'd take that one. So I very casually said I think he'd win the Santa Anita Derby. I just didn't like the way that they finished up visually in that race. I didn't think it was any kind of impressive run. Then again, as an East Coaster, I don't think any race out of Santa Anita is impressive, even when they are. So I'm a total homer, and that's okay. I have no force to do anything. I do think, though, that I mentioned this on my show, and I know you guys are going to disagree with this. I don't think this crop is that good of horses. And I mentioned this on my video last night. So I don't think this horse winning would necessarily be one of the greatest accomplishments ever. Sure, it's a third start. It'd be the fewest number of starts ever for a Derby winner, all that stuff. I don't really love this race, as I said before. So if somebody emerges from here, so be it. And he's just not going to be one of them for me. He's not better than Secretariat or Seattle Slow or Affirmed or the horses way further back. So I'm not. It's just a commonplace with horse racing nowadays. You got these young horses who come out who run these up, especially the visually appealing races, and then they're gone. So who knows what's going to happen with Tyba? Maybe he stays around. Maybe he does just breeze through this Triple Crown like Justify did, and then get retired. Who knows? But I will let him do the talking, not me.
I think, Eric, you might want to add points onto that, because I know that you don't think very highly of this crop. So if you want another opportunity to talk about how much you don't like this Kentucky Derby, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. No, and I realized, Jack, and I think you didn't realize it either until now, but I didn't get to say in literally any of our discussions of Taylor my hammering home point about him for this Kentucky Derby, which is that for every Justify, there's been a Rock Your World, some Materiality, of Arizona, anybody else, literally anybody since 1882. There's been a lot in recent years. There's only one horse that's actually won the Kentucky Derby without a start as a juvenile. And this guy's even crazier because he only has 2 starts and he didn't debut until March. It would be remarkable if he won. He's obviously a wait and see, but I just don't think he's as good as, obviously the easy comp is Justify, and I just don't see it with him because Justify was beating horses that heading in actually had a lot going for them. And Still Regard was criminally underrated throughout his Derby trail, and he still ran 4th in the Kentucky Derby. Bull Doro, maybe a little past his time, but at the same time, he was an excellent 2-year-old. The horses that Pave has beaten aren't even close to that. And he's been beating weak fields, and I think the figures more than anything California figures in general are inflated. It just happens each and every year, and I think it's no different with this guy. We saw that with Messier. We saw that with Adair Manor this year alone. And when they underrate the horses, they can run 3rd in the Kentucky Derby like Battle of Midway did a couple of years ago. Point being, I don't trust them when they come out of Santa Anita. So I just really do not see it. It's just a lot too soon. And then when we're speaking more generally on the crop, there are some people who love this crop. In fact, I'm not going to name names, but somebody wrote an article describing this crop as exceptional. And I just don't see it. When you have horses that aren't putting wins together on a consistent basis and beating up on each other, that either means they're all really good or they're all really bad. And but how these guys have all done it, they're all very bad. The third choice on the Kentucky Derby morning line this year, not just 3 starts ago, got beat on the spot by Slow Down Andy. Slow Down Andy. And I'll say it one more. Slow Down Andy. And unless you think Slow Down Andy is on par with Messier, that kind of shows you how kind of weak this crop actually is. And I just don't see it. It's made for a messy Derby. If you think about derbies that are actually strong, it's horses with a lot of wins coming from a lot of different places who do a lot of good things. 2015 alone, American Pharaoh was great. You had an undefeated Dortmund. Firing Line was coming off a 16 length or something win in Sunland. Roston was coming off a breakout performance in the Wood. That's a quality field. Nobody in this group has done that. And I think that just kind of further proves a lot like 2017 in the sense that a lot of horses aren't doing a lot of good things, except in 2017, there was one horse that was absolutely streaking and was a hype horse. And this year, that horse doesn't actually exist.
Now, I know because the immediate thing is going to be, oh, well, you're East Coast biased, even though you don't live anywhere close to the East Coast. Why is it, just to play devil's advocate here, why are the California figures inflated? I'm 100% agreeing with you. I've been saying how fraudulent the Messier figure is for the last month or for the last 3 weeks, but why are they inflated?
I mean, the exact reason I don't know, but when I compare them to other tracks and the other figures that tracks get, it's rather clear that I don't know if it's a bias or if their formula is just wrong. But you look at the number, there's a couple examples, and I'm going to go through them quickly. But let's start with Mo Donegal. On buyers especially, Mo Donegal was rated very middle of the road among final prep winners. But you look at every other major, well-respected metric, most notably time form and Brisnet. I touched on that late pace figure earlier. But those two, they have Mo Donegal as the best or one of the best horses in this crop. And Bayer, once again, doesn't give much credence to the Wood Memorial and then Aqueduct in general. We saw what happened with this other example of early voting's Withers. Early voting is going to be one of the favorites in the Preakness because people are realizing, he's actually a good horse. But coming out of the Withers, they gave him a 78. The race came back huge. They bumped it up 9 points because they can just do whatever they want, I guess, and lie to the public. But point being, they clearly just don't respect Aqueduct. And Aqueduct, Andrew, you can attest better than everybody, it plays like a weird track. And because of that, the formulas probably spit out weird numbers. And I think for California, it's the only place that's this hot and this speedy and this dry at these times of year. So naturally, the formula is going to favor the very quick times these horses are putting forward, when actually they're not actually that fast. It's just they're in a much more favorable position, and the formula is going to bump them up. And we saw what happened when Adair Manor and Messier both put forward these massive numbers in February, and they come back in April and lose to horses that on paper shouldn't have touched them. And I think the same can be said for Table with his 2 figures from a buyer perspective. So all in all, I'm not a figures hater. I just think it's crazy how overrated these California horses are year in and year out, and how often it doesn't pay out for them, and then how often horses from New York in the winter are underrated, and how often they go out and prove it wrong.
And I'm gonna say I am a figure hater. Damn the figures on that front. But I just want to say one point on the Adair Manor thing. I mean, Adair Manor, that was the 94 was what they gave that race. I'd hate to see what it would actually look like if it was a truly valid figure. But that Adair Manor was a horse that us on reason, we're going to criticize ourselves here because we thought that she was the best 3-year-old filly out of that race, and that was certainly not the case. We got sidetracked in talking about figures. Sammy didn't get the opportunity to say anything about Taba. Do you have anything to say about him?
For a couple of days, he's actually going to be my pick, but when I kept watching that replay, if you really think about it, I think I don't even think it took him so long to get into his group, and when he got in his group, Messier was done. Messier was done after running around chasing a sprinter, but that's not the point. I mean, Messier turning for home was clear. He just was so gassed down the stretch. I mean, if Taba actually wins this race, that might just be remarkable. What everybody's been saying. I mean, who knows? He could just be the next secretary. We don't know it at this point. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to. I'll put this out there. Even though I've been throwing out the superlative statements about Taba, I don't think this crop is really that. Really that good either. Yeah, I will say though that it will be, in my opinion, it will be the most remarkable thing if Taba should win this Kentucky Derby. It will be the most remarkable thing that has ever happened in the history of the Kentucky Derby and all that fun stuff. I'll give each of you final thoughts on just anything at all this entire weekend, whether it's the Derby, whether it's any of the other races. Sammy, I know that you weren't with us when we were talking about some of the other races, so if you want to take a little bit longer and talk about anything you may like on some of the undercard races, you can take the opportunity to. But after that, anything, you other two, any final thoughts you have, now is the time to share those.
I mean, I think Chad Brown is going to have a huge weekend. I mean, if I got 9-2 in a Damo, I'm going to just walk out the building at this point. That's absolutely, there's no way that holds. He has to be the favorite, you would think. I'm excited to see Jack Christopher make his 3-year-old debut. Been waiting a little bit while for that. So it's good to have that. I mean, Mike Battaglia, let's be real. Can we name a worse morning maker than him?
I don't think one exists. And Eric, I know that we talked to you about this before, how much fun you had with his morning line from the 2020 Breeders' Cup Mile.
Yeah, no, nothing touches that in this card. I mean, if you're not familiar, please go take a look and then figure out where the actual betting landed in that race. It is insanely bad. And it's kind of bad in a couple of these races. I think you mentioned Adamo, Sammy. I think when you look at the morning line of that race, he clearly didn't know who to make favorite, which is fine. But how he maneuvered it, it does not help the bettor at all. So that's one thing. And I mean, yeah, it's just bad. But once again, it would take a a miracle only Mike Taggart could throw together himself to top what was the 2020 British Cup Mile.
I'm actually going to throw that in the chat right now for if folks want to hear that. It was pretty funny. I back during the summer I was listening to, because I tend to listen back to stuff from Racing Rundown time to time because I want to see what we can improve on. I listened to that and I immediately screen recorded it and sent it to Eric, and I was like, I didn't remember how much this pissed you off, but it was so funny.
Yeah, truly terrible stuff. I know we're kind of sidetracked again, but just in general, if you're playing these races this weekend, do some critical thinking on what you think the odds will be, because it's not going to be what those morning lines are saying.
Any other final thoughts, Sammy? I just saw you unmute, so you can continue.
Yeah, we continue. Adama was not the worst morning line. I think it has to go to the Churchill Downs. I mean, Jackie's worried at 5-2. I mean, Mike Battaglia would be the type of morning line maker off track that would make Flightline second choice in a race. That's my opinion on him. I mean, if you look at the other races on this card, I think the American Turf came up good. I wish the horse that won for Chad Brown today ran in that. Do you think
Napoleonic War?
Yeah, because he got a horrible ride by Flavian in the
Oh, that was a joke, and that was the race that me and Jack watched together after the Wood Memorial preview, and we saw the drop that Jack predicted absolutely correctly to the exact odds. And then he came back and won today.
I gotta tell this story. So it was right after we got off the Wood Memorial live show. I said to Andrew, I'm going to throw some money on this horse. And he was 11-1 right as the gates opened, and down the backside, he drops from 11 to 7-1, and he didn't win. So it's not like I got screwed out of any, it's not like I got screwed out of a bunch of winnings, but that was certainly fun. And it also happened with Cheryl Spite. He was 12 and then dropped to 9. So that was also fun. Eric is very familiar with how much fun that the drop down the backside is.
Well, yeah, I feel for you, Jack, but I guarantee none of you have dealt with a 13-point drop from the moment the gates opened to the time they had reached the half-mile pole, especially when that goes from 21-1 to 8-1 on a race you bet your life on. So if any three of you top that, please let me know at any point in the future. I'd be happy to, but right now I'm the king of getting absolutely destroyed on that front.
I had a 16-point drop once.
There you go. It just shows, man. It's absolutely ridiculous sometimes.
All right, well, we gotta get to wrapping this up because I still got to get an Ethereal Road preview out, and we're gonna finish that. So, any final thoughts, the rest of you, on anything we haven't touched up to this point?
Yes, I'm sorry, Jack. Right at this exact moment, we are exiting your birthday. So once again, happy birthday to you. And I can't believe you made time to do this 2.5-hour preview today, but that really shows your dedication. And I wish I could give you cake over the internet, but I can't. So all my best wishes will be the only thing I can give you. I'm going to be mostly sticking to my exactas and daily doubles and playing a couple of horses to win pretty heavily. Probably Trivivan is the key to that of the win bets. The other ones will be smaller. And then I talked about that Turf Classic into Derby. Daily double, so that's the 3 Chads into the 1, 8, and 10 in the Derby. And other than that, I want to echo the sentiments of Aaron, who was on my stream last night, Justified3107 on Twitter, who says, no drama, no inquiry, no objections, no somebody cutting off, nobody getting hurt. Let's have a stress-free Derby, because I think everybody deserves that, and no positive drug tests 1 week later.
Damn right, 100% agree with that. We need a Derby without bullshit. That's just the way that it has to go. We'll mention on that front the pre-week count for how many coffees I'd go through this week. The over-under was set at 7.5. We are going to exactly hit that over tomorrow when I get number 7 on the week. So didn't exceed it, didn't go under it this week, but it has been a long week, but I've been very happy with how everything has came out. And I'll give the floor to you, Eric, if you have any final thoughts, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, just obviously enjoy the weekend. I find myself beating myself up over bad picks and stuff, and I mean, I'm losing money is part of it sometimes. So I just enjoy the racing, because these are excellent horses that we're going to see all weekend. And I'll echo Andrew again, saying I say it before, most races or most cards I watch, all 4 legs, full hearts, shoulders, I don't care. Just let's keep it all intact. That's more important than anything. And frankly, I think because one guy isn't here, I think we're in pretty good shape when it comes to the positives, staying away and things like that.
And with all that being mentioned, you can scroll back up through the comment or through the chat and the live stream. You can get all the relevant links to Racing Rundown. There's a link to our Kentucky Derby profiles, all 18 of them that are up for relevant horses at this point. There will still be 2 more. I haven't had the opportunity to get Ethereal Road and Pioneer of Medina profiles out, but those will be out. I'm actually, as I've been mentioning this entire time, I still have to do that preview. I'm going to do it. Those videos will be out. They will be out very late tonight, so most of you will probably not be watching them tonight. But those will be out before tomorrow. There will not be previews of Also Eligibles. I know I said the whole time we would do those, but this week just got to the point where I was not able to do Also Eligibles, and now we're getting up on the point where I think it's 9 o'clock tomorrow is the scratch deadline for them. So it's not it doesn't make sense to do them anymore at this point. But Ethereal Road and Pioneer of Medina will be out. And soon, like if someone sneezes wrong, then instead of Ethereal Road, you'll have a Rich Strike preview or a Rich Strike profile. Relevant links, as I mentioned already, be sure to check out our Kentucky Derby pick show, our Kentucky Oaks pick show, and be sure to go follow everyone. Check out Andrew's show. Be sure to go follow us all on social media. Twitter links have also been posted. With that being mentioned, that is it for Racing Rundown's Kentucky Derby Week content. Again, the 2 profiles notwithstanding, those will be here. And then that'll be it for us for this Kentucky Derby Week. It's been a long one. I'm looking forward to Friday night after the Oaks sleeping for the first time for more than 6 hours. So that's certainly going to be a nice refresher. And we'll be back next week. We're going to break everything down. I don't think we'll be able to do a post-Derby recap. Past couple of years, we've done that after the Derby. Don't think we're going to do that. We will have a YouTube video recapping the Derby, but that will probably come Monday when I am able to get back down and access the programs that I'm able to use when I'm here at school. So with that being mentioned, that's it for this, and appreciate you for dropping by, and we will see you next week for recapping all the nonsense that happens this weekend. Have a good one.